All right, we are live. About a couple minutes to get here. Let me just do a couple quick edits. And we'll get going in a minute. Just hang tight. Just gotta do a few edits here, and then we'll be good to go. Give everybody a few minutes to get in. Go to the YouTube 1 sec. All right, almost there. All right. All right. All right, I think we're good on that end. Let's come back in. I think we can get going here now. All right. Just double checking, making sure. I know it's been a little bit. I haven't done a live in maybe, I don't know, about 5-6 weeks or more. Could be. Not sure. Just making sure everything's up and running. Looks like we are good. All right. I want to welcome everybody. Actually, let me put on the mic. Sound a little better now. All right. I want to welcome everybody to the show. We are live right now on Primordial Chaos YouTube. We're also live on Primordial Chaos 9 on Instagram. And we are also live on the Primordial Chaos Facebook page. Haven't figured out the TikTok thing yet, if you can go live on there. I think you can. As you know, I just started that page not too long ago. I'll look into it. I think you can. I haven't figured that one out yet, but we'll figure it out soon. Try to get live on there too. Going to run through some quick announcements while we're still waiting. Just a few more people file in. So first and foremost, let me run through. If you're interested in a spiritual reading, if you're interested in off of various different ones, everything I'm saying is going on the bottom of the screen there. You see it on the ticker there. You'll see everything I'm saying in the description box of the video. But if you're interested in a spiritual reading or a consultation, as it says down there, for Klapothic demonic readings, Santa Muerte readings, Egyptian oracle readings, shadow work readings, which, as you always hear me say in the beginning of the videos, Shadow work is something continuous. It's never ending. There's no such thing as you get up and all your shadow work is finished, because shadow work is about uncovering the hidden self. And things are constantly changing all the time within you and around you. So that's a great reading to do to see what's going on in the inner depths of the subconscious mind. And also, most importantly, as I tell people, when you're creating ritual work should always be designed first and foremost to address your needs before your wants. Because when the needs are taken care of and you've addressed those, trust me when I tell you, the wants will come. Okay. So that's a good reading for that. Deity readings to see what gods, goddesses, demons, spirits walk with you, not to worship them. Because as I said before, we don't worship anything, but to better understand yourself and establish a stronger connection between those spirits and you. Or maybe you're just interested in a spiritual consultation. Anyway, for any of the aforementioned, shoot me an email, that's going on the bottom of the ticker you see there going across the screen on the bottom. Shoot me an email at khnum19@gmail.com. Please include in the email your full weekly availability. Don't just say I'm available Wednesday at 3 o'clock. Unfortunately, as I said before, it doesn't work like that. Send me a full weekly availability and the time zone you live in, and we'll set something up real quick. Okay. If you're interested in signing up for classes, and I'm going to go through this month's classes, the way to do that is to go to the official Primordial Chaos Patreon page, located at patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. That's right on the bottom of the screen there. And join Tier 3. That's going to give you access to the 3 private classes I do every month on Patreon, and in addition to the group ritual we do at the end of the month. Also, when you do join, you don't just get access from the day you join moving forward. You get access to everything in the archives, which is 4+ years going back. You also get access to that ritual work and all the group work we're doing together in the classes. And it's real simple how the classes work. You get when you join, when we have the classes, you get a private Zoom link. If you're able to attend live, you come live. You have access to converse with me and everybody else in the room. If you can't get there live, no worry. That's why everything is recorded and archived. You can take the classes and do the work on your time, on your schedule. It's going to literally impossible to get everybody in the class at the same time due to work schedules, geographical location, and time zones. But if you can get to the classes live, I most encourage you to come to the classes and attend them live. All right. So that's patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti, Tier 3. Check it out. I have a bunch of ongoing classes that are constantly new content is being added. I'm covering a vast majority of topics on the Patreon page: shadow work class, ancient Egyptian vampiric class, Luciferian magic and self-mastery, Klepothic sorcery. The shadow work class is Kundalini meditation and awakening class, Sith dark side alchemy and philosophy class. Anyway, if you go to the Patreon page, go to the collection section, you will see all of the ongoing classes. They're all archived in numerical order, so you can take them as they were actually done in that same order. All right, patreon.com/Baniti. Also, don't forget to check out the Primordial Chaos podcast, available on Spotify, all major podcast platforms. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram, which we are live right now, Primordial Chaos 9 on Instagram. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook, 2 words, Primordial Chaos on Facebook. And keep posted with us, obviously, here on the YouTube channel right here, Primordial Chaos. Also in the community section, I also put all updated information. So you have 3 platforms, and also on TikTok, primordialchaos.com, primordialchaos3.com is the handle on the TikTok. That is another platform you can keep abreast to all the latest classes, announcements, and things that we got going on. All right, that's going to be it for the announcements. So I'm going to get into kind of what I wanted to cover. I'll get to the chat. I'll cover your questions and comments that are relevant to the subject matter. So I've never got around this comes up a lot over the years on and off in classes. So I've never really fully got around to really doing a class on this particular subject. Question always comes up: thoughts on hallucinogens, thoughts on doing any type of psychedelics that enhance or activate the DMT molecule, right? This gets a little bit more intricate because the DMT molecule is, and then when you also have an understanding of the hippocampus area of your brain, this is all in conjunction of what creates what we call our spiritual experiences, right? Whether it's transcendental meditations, out of body experiences, intense visualization experiences that we go through. There's a root connection to all this. Now, as I've said many times over the years, right? If you're doing things like ayahuasca, mushrooms, or any hallucinogens in regards to that, again, make sure you're doing it correctly. Number one, number two, make sure you're getting your product from reliable and it's good sources, because that's very critical and important, because I've known over the years some people who have dabbled in it made mistakes, and obviously uh whoever you have around you doing those type of things, make sure it's people you can trust. Having said that, with the basics, I've also always said it's not necessary or the only way that you can activate the DMT molecule. As we all know, it shouldn't be the only way or source you rely on doing that. Part of why you do your ritual work, part of why you do all your spiritual studies and your practices, because all of it is tied into and linked into frequency and vibration. And I've explained this many times before over the years. Everything you do has a vibrational frequency to it when you're doing ritual work, when you're tapping into things in your mundane world on a daily basis. Everything has a certain frequency that can align or unalign you. Some of those frequencies make you less dense, which speeds up your vibrational frequency and activates or stimulates that DMT molecule so you can open your psyche up to having certain spiritual experiences. But then there are some frequencies which make you very dense, right? They're very low vibrational frequencies. And in, I believe it was the last short tutorial video I did, or the one before that, I can't remember. And I've been telling you guys at the end of the holiday season last year, coming into this year, there would be even more of a targeted attack on human beings, especially human beings who are really, in the sense, I don't like using the word waking up, because I don't like that woke shit, because you know my thoughts on that. But for people who are evolving, transforming, and spiritually growing, their goal is to send out those low vibrational frequencies to make you more dense, to block and obstruct the pineal gland where you absorb those frequencies in light form and energy. And this is what speeds up the vibrational rate and opens you up, quote unquote, to the spirit world. They know these things. So as I said in that video, there is a serious, when I talk about we're dealing with high forms of very advanced spiritual warfare, this is what you got going on right now. And they go to work on you mentally and emotionally. As I said, there's so much shit going on in the world, in the news, to distract you. And that's why the previous video, I think, which was the last short tutorial I did, are you unknowingly destroying the power of your magic? And they put these distractions and obstructions in your path to kind of, one, slow down that frequency and slow down the pineal being able to receive those messages, that information, that knowledge, or that consciousness. Now, one way to look at this is, I always use this example. If you remember the old dial radios, whether you had a boombox or the old radios in the car, where you had to use the hand dial to tune in to a specific radio station, right? And sometimes you had to play with the knob just to get it right, depending on where you were at. You might have had to move the antenna. All right, this is old school for those that are a little bit old school. You might have had to take the antenna, move it and adjust it, play with the knob. That's because you were trying to catch a specific frequency. So they can send radio waves out, right? Just like they can, like how microwave cooks food. It's the same process. they can send those same frequencies out to damage your brain. They can send those same, and look, unfortunately, to a degree, this carries those radiation frequencies, as we know, just like a microwave does. Just being out in the environment, there's no way to completely avoid it 100%. I mean, you walk outside, you have power lines, you're exposing yourself to these frequencies. As I said before, when you study the 12, it's not a coincidence, 12 occult nerves and the 9 magnetic brain particles, they all are in conjunction. Well, a lot of our magnetic particles are damaged by these frequencies. This is why a lot of us might experience migraines and headaches out of nowhere, or sometimes getting a metal taste in your mouth. You might feel like, for no reason, like almost a metal blood type of taste in your mouth. Some people will describe. Uh, you might start feeling extreme pain in certain parts of your body, on and off. Could be your chest, your arms, your shoulder, your neck, your spinal cord. Right? 9 out of 10 times, some of you have even reported you might even go to the doctor, run tests, and nothing comes up, because what you're experiencing is something of a spiritual nature that's not going to show up on those type of tests, right? So you can't avoid being exposed to the frequencies, but you can reverse the process through your ritual and your spiritual work, right? Because when you read, if you've studied all the books on alchemy and the Philosopher's Stone, the Emerald Tablets of Tahuti, all of that Hermetic philosophy, Hermetic alchemy, what that's trying to teach you is how you make that alchemical transformation by speeding up the vibrational frequency, right? Because, as I said many times before, when people always talk about this world is an illusion, this realm isn't real, this, that, and the other, well, that's partially true, but it's a little bit more to that. It's about understanding vibrational frequency. It's an illusion because things are vibrating at a low frequency when they take on a solid form. So if I see you now, you see me, it's not so much that it's an illusion, it's just it's in a very lesser or simplistic or quote unquote mortal form. Now, I've always posed in a joking, funny way, right? I've always said, well, to any individual over the years, if you think that this world is not real, or this part of your physical existence does not have some type of reality to it, then stand there and let somebody punch you dead in your face. You shouldn't be afraid, because if you're one of those individuals who think that this world is completely an illusion, then that shouldn't frighten you. You should be able to take that blow and feel no pain. But we know that that's not the case. So what I'm trying to get you to see is, when you're vibrating at low frequencies, you get trapped between, as I've said many times over the years, you are jumping from realm to realm, whether you're aware of it or not. There's a paradigm of two worlds that you live in, that exist side by side with each other, and you're jumping from time to time. Why do I say the word you're jumping from time to time? Because when your vibrational frequency is low, you get trapped into this mundane existence, or what we call the physical realm, as they call it, right? As I've said many times over the years, the movie The Matrix was trying to show you how you break that matriarchal system, right? And the character Neo, which we know is named after, as I've said before, the neocortex portion of your brain. So they called him Neo. All that whole movie is just about how your brain functions and operates. And they created it from the neocortex part of your brain, and created a character out of that called Neo, who was Keanu Reeves. And it's just showing you, basically, when we're talking about activating the DMT molecule and opening yourself up to the spirit world, it's basically showing you the functioning of how that brain power and energy works. So your neocortex area of your brain is responsible too for a lot of your dreams, your spiritual experience. And there's also a connection there with what they call the hippocampus area of the brain, which creates the experiences, whatever spirit dreams, visions, things that appear to be, when you say, people say, I've had vivid dreams, right? With this thing called lucid and vivid dreaming, where sometimes you can't even distinguish between what is a dream and what is, actually what people in the mundane world would say physical or real. Now, to show you there's a thin veil, as I said many times before, all of us, when you have an intense dream, Or a terrifying dream could have been as a kid, you wake up sweating, or you can wake up sometimes actually with the effects or the feelings of the actual dream to show you that there's just a wall or a thin veil there. It's all about vibrational frequency. There is no separation between the two. And this is where people get confused when I've been saying for years, everything is about the now, the present moment. And part of breaking that spell and activating your connection to the spirit world is to understand, and people still struggle with this, everything is one continuous moment. Nothing is separated, right? We're under the illusion it is because, as I've said many times over the years, they've created these false systems of how they calculate time, right? They've immediately indoctrinated you with that there's a beginning and an end, even in your evolution as a physical being that is manifested on this realm. Well, you go, I went from an infancy to an adult. In your mind, you think that that has periods of separation, but it doesn't. Okay? Because there was your birth or existence on the other side of this realm, right? As you lived what? In the chaotic waters of Nun, or the female, which was your mother's womb. You swam around in a sack of the dark watery abyss for 9 months, not a coincidence. The number 9, we know there's a sacred science to that. And then you were physically birthed into this realm. Now, the process, how they indoctrinate you, because we're indoctrinated from the very early stages with these physical, man-made, person, place, thing, worship religions. We think this existence is life, living. Okay. Now, really focus. If you think about it for a minute, you're living to actually die again, to go back from whence you came. Because what happens as you start to grow and get older, right? The body starts to break down. Health issues arise, injuries, old age sets in. So now when we really look at how this concept is taught to us over the years, is this realm, are we really living? Or is this just a temporary manifestation where we have incarnated in one of our many incarnations for the many journeys that we must travel in order for us to evolve into who we're destined to become? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. Now, some of us know this because some of us always say things like, I feel like I've already been here. Or you have experiences throughout your life that they call deja vu. Like, oh man, I feel like I know that person. Or you go to a place, I feel like I've been here before, right? I feel like I visited this place. Why does this seem so familiar to me, right? These are things and experiences that happen to us, confirming what I'm talking about now. Now, again, I'm not telling you to believe anything that I'm telling you, right? That's your choice, right? I encourage you to research these things and come to the realization and the reality of them through your research and your spiritual work, not just in books either, right? Don't get caught up in that. Oh, where's that in a book? As I said, everything spiritual that you're going to experience and go through in life is not going to be found in a book, unfortunately. And the only thing you need to do is confirm these things for yourself. Others will have to come to the reality of it. That's not what this is about. That's what makes this path very unique, because even though collectively we're all on a journey to master ourselves, right? But obviously we're all taking slightly different paths based on our experience, what we've been through, our previous incarnations, all of these things, right? So collectively we can get together and dialogue, but everybody's experience is not the same. So this is why established religions, dogmas, and spiritual paths that have rules, restrictions, and guidelines exclusively do not work for people like us who are on a path to self-mastery, trying to become the gods and the goddesses that we are by DNA, right? And the DMT molecule is the gateway or the doorway when it's activated that opens you up to the awareness, and that's why I titled to the spirit world within. So this is not what people think it is, right? People don't really know when you're dealing with the occult or high forms of the left-hand path. I say high forms because there's different perspectives of the left-hand path, right? I'm not even really a crazy or big on using that term, because like religions and the terms Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, even the left-hand path has become an indoctrinated terminology. Because even to the ignorant, people think that everybody that's on the left-hand path is a Satanist. That's not true. People think that the ignorant ones I'm talking about think that somebody who says they're on the path of the occult or the left-hand path, they must be part of the Church of Satan. And that's not true, right? Just like when you're dealing with Luciferian philosophy and spirituality, there's different concepts of it, right? Luciferian philosophy and a lot of the stuff we're talking about tonight would fall in that category, is about apotheosis, self-mastery, right? You being the center of your universe, you are the God, you are the ruler, the controller, the sovereign creator of your existence and your spiritual sovereignty. See, if I'm saying words like ruler, creator, the God, if you're religious, you're going to get spooked out because you're so programmed and indoctrinated that you think God is some old man sitting on some chair somewhere way out there in the clouds. That's spookism, right? That's faith and belief in things not confirmed, seen, or proven. And unfortunately, religious folks can't prove anything without using their man-made written Bible or Quran or Torah or whatever sacred text that they believe is their sacred holy book. Because I've always asked, prove to me God exists without using the Bible. And most people can't do it that are religious. Because they'll say, well, that's the book I subscribe to. That's the word of God. It's the infallible word of God. So you believe in everything that's in there, word verbatim, and then they pick and choose. I don't want to get into all that, but you get my point. But my thing is, if you can't, then there's something deeper you must look into. But let's talk a little bit about the DMT molecule. I haven't said all that. I want to just go through a couple of key points. So there's a book here I would recommend. I'm using the digital version of it. There's a book here that's available through Inner Traditions. You should be able to get it on Amazon. I do like to give you guys the sources so you can research this yourself. The book is called The DMT, The Spirit Molecule, a Doctor's Revolutionary Research into the Biology of Near-Death and Mystical Experiences. I forget who the author is. Hold on. Don't tell me to put that in. I'll get it. Just type in Rick Strassman. STRASSMAN. First name Rick, last name Strassman, STRASSMAN. There is a free digital version of it on Scribd or Scribed if you have that. It is available on Amazon, and you can get it straight from the Inner Traditions website. It is also available. And it's just type in DMT, the spirit molecule. That's actually the title of the book. The second part is what's on the front cover, but it's just DMT, the spirit molecule by Rick Strassman. He is a medical doctor. So I found this book a couple of years ago interesting because one thing I think in certain aspects of our spirituality, we do need to incorporate some medical science in there to get a better understanding. And that's one of the reasons why over the years I've liked having Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum on, because he is a clinical psychologist. And he always adds that medical aspect to psychology that is critical, because what we do is very deep and intense from a psychological aspect, right? It's critical. This is why I've always said one of the keys to mastering yourself is to be in a sound mind and a sound body. That is important. I can't stress that enough, right? Because if you have psychological, mental, or emotional issues, and you could be on certain medications, this, that, or the other, you need to have a thorough understanding of that, because that's going to play a part in your spiritual work and your spiritual experiences, right? Somebody who might be dealing with psychological, mental issues, there's a different approach to that. One, it depends on what that is. And again, I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm not going to give you medical advice. But I have, over the years with different clients, have stressed if you're dealing with psychological issues, there's certain things I encourage them they should do and not do, right? Because if you're not in a sound mind or sound body and you open yourself up to the spirit realm, same thing like if you're doing hallucinogens like ayahuasca or mushrooms, and you have mental problems, that could be a very damaging or detrimental thing, okay? So that could be something, you want to be aware of, okay? That could be something that you need to have knowledge of, because again, The last thing we want anybody to do is make themselves or put themselves in a worse situation. Okay, we don't want that. Okay, anyway. All right. So let's go through a little bit of this. I'm going to go through his introduction real quick because he touches on some foundational points. Now, the book is very thorough and detailed. Obviously, we don't have time to go through the thing, but his introduction covers on a lot of foundational things that I want to run into it. So I'm kind of going to be skipping around, and I can never say the full breakdown of the word that DMT is abbreviated for, the methyl. I can never say that primatine, the methylprimatine. I could be saying that wrong, but I'm just going to refer to it as DMT. I was drawn to DMT because of its presence in all of our bodies. So we have to establish there's a natural presence of it in your body. And this is why I said it's not necessary that you have to do hallucinogens to activate it. The hallucinogens just speed up the process, right? As I've talked about over the years amongst the Native American shamans or the African witch doctors, a lot of the initiates who go through the initiation process to become a shaman must go through intense aspects of activating that DMT molecule, using ritual herbs and hallucinogens, because when you're going through that initiation, you want to access everything that's in your subconscious mind, the good and the bad. Part of the initiation is the individual has to face all of their personal demons. Hold on one sec. Yeah, as part of the initiation that they go through is to the shamans is to face their personal demons that they've created, their fears, their anxieties, everything that they've absorbed, they must face, right? And when you're tapping into that, all those forces, prana energy, spiritual, all of those things, it's critical and important that you face all of those things. That's how one becomes a master. Now, you can look at this also as high forms of shadow work too, because there are high forms of shadow work to this type of work. But the main thing, as Dr. Strassman is saying here in the book, that there are natural levels of it in our body, and that's why, and confirms why you always hear me say over the years, it is not mandatory and necessary that is the only way to activate that DMT molecule. As I said earlier, your ritual work, your meditations, mantras, anything that adjusts and aligns your vibrational frequency is in that area. But let's continue. All right. I believe the source of this DMT was the mysterious pineal gland, a tiny organ situated in the center of our brains. Modern medicine knows little about this little gland's role, but it has rich metaphysical history. Now, if you have done your research and your study and you are in alignment with what he's put in here, and I mentioned the pineal earlier, that if that is the source for this, and if they're focusing on obstructing and blocking that by sending low vibrational frequencies, that's going to reduce your ability to connect. Now, again, I encourage you to do your own research and come to your own conclusion, but I do believe there is a strong connection like Dr. Strassman has in the book when you do further research, right? And these are the things they don't want you to know. They don't want you to know these things because it will unlock the power of who you really are. They don't want you to have an understanding. And it will confirm all these things we've heard over the years. And even when you look at, say, the biblical text from an occult, esoterical perspective, it left clues of this. The kingdom of heaven resides within, right? All these little clues that were put there, even in the Gospels, when you hear Jesus say things like, when the body becomes full of light, the eye becomes one, right? He's referring to the activation of the pineal gland. Even when you read the story of Jacob's ladder and you look at, for an example, your spinal cord, right? And we know how the Kundalini energy travels up. Your spinal cord represents that ladder, right? That wrestling with El, or going up Jacob's ladder, because then, as you know, after he wrestles with God, as it says metaphorically, his name is changed to Israel, which means to ascend to El, right? And what that's talking about, and even in the Bible, in that story in Exodus, it refers to the place it happened. It's called Pineal, right? Not a coincidence. Very phonetically similar to the English word pineal or pineal, right? So what that story is trying to show you, the activation or the awakening or the opening of the pineal gland, right? And not a coincidence that Yaakov, his name is changed to Israel, right? Because of that story. Is that a coincidence? No. Okay. So there's always been things there to allude to it, even in the lesser mysteries of what we call religion. Okay. It's just the powers that be, human men and mortals, dumbed down these sacred teachings and then passed it off to us in these man-made religions called Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. All right. So let's continue. And there's going to be something interesting that comes up here. Modern medicine knows little about this gland's role, but it has a rich metaphysical history. Descartes, for example, believed the pineal was the seat of the soul. We've heard that term before. A lot of authors have referred to the pineal as the seat of the soul, the root. Why is that referred to as that? Because remember, the pineal is that gland, or is that, I always like, I use the example of the hand dial radio frequency. It's that antenna or frequency that absorbs that vibrational energy or that consciousness or that awareness. That's why. And it's almost like it makes everything else functions. And it's like, if that's not functioning correctly, it shuts down a lot of other aspects of your spirituality, right? And both Western and Eastern mystical traditions place our highest spiritual center within its confines. We see this if you study the chakras. We see the pineal is the bridge or the gateway to the activation of the crown chakra. But I always look at these three: the throat, the brow, the ajna, or the pineal, whatever you want to call it, the third eye, right? They all work in conjunction, right? If you understand how they all work, we know the root coming up to the solar plexus, the heart, etc. But these three here, last three, are critical. From this point up is where most people have their issues and blockages. Now, why I stopped here at the throat chakra, you'll find people who struggle to express themselves, say introverted, or keep things bottled in, don't know how to outwardly express themselves. It creates serious issues. And usually those issues transition into mental and emotional issues, which automatically is going to create issues for what we're calling the pineal, right? And the crown cannot be opened if the pineal isn't activated. So it's kind of a little suspect to me when people say my crown chakra is open. And you sometimes talk with them, and I'm like, well, I don't know how that is, based on some other previous things that you have said. But those three are very critical because they all kind of piggyback off each other more so than the previous. But anyway, let's continue here. Then Dr. Strassman goes on to say, I therefore wondered if excessive pineal D.M.T production was involved in naturally occurring psychedelic states. These might include birth, death, and near-death psychosis and mystical experience. Now, the psychosis part is why I was saying you have to be careful if you are, say, an individual dealing with mental issues and problems, and say you're on medication for it, which we know, how certain medications can be very damaging. It's very important. You don't want to activate worse states of psychosis if you're dealing with psychological and mental problems. That's why I mentioned that earlier. Only later, when the study was well underway, did I also begin considering, now this is the interesting part I was saying a minute ago, DMT's role in alien abduction experience. Let's stop there for a quick second. And this is why I wanted to go through this introduction, because he covers on a lot of the foundational, critical aspects to understanding the DMT molecule. All right. Now, the alien abduction experience is a very interesting topic of discussion and debate. And this is where I think the essence and the truth of this lies. Okay. I think the debate where people get caught up in is the literal aspect of it, as opposed to deciphering between the reality of it and what's real, or what might have been an illusion, what's spiritual. Again, you have to go back to what I said earlier. Everything's part of one continuous moment, the present, the now. So I think what happens, and I say think what happens based on my research and understanding, and again, you draw your own conclusion. I do believe these people are having subjective experiences through an example like this, as Dr. Strassman describes in the book. I do think an individual per se who says they've experienced some type of abduction from extraterrestrials, or what we're labeling aliens, or beings that are from other galaxies, other dimensions, other planets, other solar systems. I think what they've done is they've tapped into the higher aspects of their subconscious mind. They've opened themselves up to the subjective universe, universes, plural, and multiverses. And again, you're like a magnet when your vibrational frequency is wide open and sped up like that. And then this is when I believe you do draw certain entities or beings to you. So, excuse me, I do believe they're having their experiences. I think where the conflict comes in is trying to explain this, right? Because then you're going to have the naysayers and the people that want to attack and criticize and persecute them, because they're trying to prove something literally that was something that happened outside of this three-dimensional realm or existence of person, place, or thing. Because what they experienced happened outside of three-dimensional vibrational existence. So they struggle trying, the proof is hard to prove. And this is why, they'll use that when trying to, we've all seen these shows over the years, you've read books, trying to prove UFO sightings, if they're legit or not, if alien abduction is real. Well, look, bottom line is this: you got to be a fool to think we're the only intelligent life form on this planet, right? There's a lot of classified, the M12, if you're familiar with the Majestic 12, do your research on that, which was a group or a classified aspect of the government that was responsible for monitoring extraterrestrial behavior. We know about Area 51 out in Nevada, right? I mean, there's a lot of Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. With what was the name of the dude? Barney and his wife. The other one that had alien. I mean, there's a lot of information to support, and I'm not telling you to believe it or accept it, that this is real, right? But you'd have to be foolish to think we're the only intelligent life form. Now, the funny thing is, I take it a step further. I don't say funny thing like it's comical or humorous. These extraterrestrials, the intelligent beings, these gods, whether you're referring to them as the Anunnaki, whether you're referring to them as the Palladians, the Octorians, the Draconians, there's all these different classifications when people are studying other star systems, other beings, other planets. The crazy thing is, you are a direct descendant of those beings, right? We got to stop looking at this as if there's something separate from outside of ourselves. And this is why they attempt to make contact with humans, because a lot of us have now become a lesser form of who we truly are. So then there's the aspect of this, and this is why I told you this D.M.T shit is going to open up a doorway to a lot of things that you probably didn't think we were going to talk about tonight. But what we have to stop doing is separating ourselves from it, as if these are beings that are completely different from us. Some of you guys are direct descendants of these beings. I've said this before in the past. Some of you are water beings. You have direct relationship and connection to reptilian type of beings. And Dr. Delbert Blair used to talk about this a lot, right? And I think, in my opinion, not just because I had a personal relationship with him, but in my opinion, he's one of the good teachers to study information on this. And again, as I've said in the past, you don't have to accept. He is firm in his conviction that he was abducted. He spoke and it's communicated and has had experience. with extraterrestrials. That's your choice to accept that or not. But I think his information and what he put out over the years kind of speaks for itself. Okay. So the bottom line is we can't separate ourselves. Some of us, you're directly linked to what we're calling. And what happens is when you open yourself up, you start to connect with what you're naturally connected to in DNA and blood. And that needs to be understood. Because when we talk about, we always like to talk about on this path and in other paths of consciousness, our ancestors, right? The ancestors this, the ancestors that. Got to download from the ancestors. Now, be careful, because don't just look at your ancestors as the last 3 or 4 generations that you're conscious and aware of. Some of your ancestors go back beyond the stars. Okay. So when you open yourself up, you're drawing in bands that can go that far back, that are connected to you. Okay. So I do believe people who are in this category open themselves up. And this is why I found it very interesting that Dr. Strassman connects the activation of that DMT. There's a connection there with the role in alien abduction, extraterrestrial phenomenon, etc. I found it very interesting when I first read it. All right, let's continue on. The DMT project was founded on cutting edge brain science. I'm going to get to your comments and your questions as soon as I get through the material. I just want to go through some of these foundational things, then we'll talk about it, okay? Well, let me just go through the rest of this here. So the DMT project was found on cutting-edge brain science, especially that which dealt with the psychopharmacology of serotonin. Now, we've also we'll talk a little bit about the serotonin and the melatonin, right? However, my own background, which included a decades-long relationship with Zen Buddhist training monastery, powerfully affected how we prepared people for and supervised the drug sessions. DMT, the spirit molecule, reveals what we know about psychedelic drugs in general, and DMT in particular. It then traces the DMT research project from its earliest imitations through a maze of committees and review boards to its actual performance. So the interesting thing about the book is there's data and there's research. And this is why I always used to refer to years ago this path as a spiritual science, because our path infuses science and spirituality. And this is why I think it's important. So why I think, in my opinion, this is a very good book, or one of the top books out there on understanding DMT, is because there's a lot of data and research to support. He's not just making blanket statements. And again, I'm not telling you to accept everything in here, but he has a lot of data and research to support why he's giving that opinion, or maybe that thesis, or of how he's explaining things, right? All right. Although all of us believed in the potentially beneficial properties of psychedelic drugs, the studies were not intended to be therapeutic. And so our research subjects were healthy volunteers. Notice he said they did this on healthy individuals, sound mind, sound body. The project generated a wealth of biological and psychological data, much of which I have already published in the scientific literature. On the other hand, I have written nearly nothing about volunteers' story. I hope the many excerpts I've included here, taken from over 1,000 pages of notes, will provide a sense of remarkable emotional, psychological, and spiritual effects of the chemical. Problems inside and outside of the research environment led to the end of these studies in 1995. Despite the difficulties we encountered, I am optimistic about the possible benefits of the controlled use of psychedelic drugs. Based upon what we learned in the New Mexico research, I offer a wide-ranging vision for DMT's roles in our lives, and conclude by promoting a research agenda and optimal setting for future work with DMT and related drugs. All right. Anyway, I'm going to skip around here. You can read the rest. There's a little bit more on the introduction, but you see the basis of where he's trying to go with it. You also see the connection to what we do. Okay. Now, when you get into the meat of it, let's go. There's one more thing I want to go into what DMT is, and then we'll go into your questions. And again, if I have time, I would like to get to the psychedelic pineal, or the pineal where it meets the spirit gland. Just touch on some key points, because I'm trying to also show you of what we do on the occult and the left-hand path. This is going to tip you off of how your spiritual work works, right? When you're doing rituals, when you're invoking energy that we're calling spirits, gods, goddesses, and demons, because they deal with certain frequencies and vibrations. And when you're tapping into the different masks, say, of Lucifer or Luciferian, the Luciferian current or energy of Lucifer, you're awakening certain parts of your psyche when you're doing that, right? And this is why we use that term if we're referring to the 7 Hermetic principles of Tahuti. All is mental. Mental is all. The universe is mental. That's going to take on a different meaning when you have a full understanding of what this is talking about, okay? All right, let's go to what DMT is. And that's in chapter 2. DMT is the remarkable main character of this book. While chemically simple, the spirit molecule provides our consciousness access to the most amazing and unexpected vision, thoughts, and feelings. It throws open the door to the worlds beyond your imagination. That's what DMT is. That's what you're doing in your spiritual work, your rituals. You're opening yourself up to the worlds beyond your imagination. Imagination has root in the word images. When you are activating your imagination, you're conjuring up imagery based on what? Consciousness, right? Imagination, image. Because if an artist is drawing things, they must what? Imagine them first. It must take its shape, form in the spirit world and mental plane before it can manifest on the physical. So that is a great definition of what the DMT molecule is and what it provides. Our consciousness, access to the most amazing, and he uses the next word, unexpected visions, thoughts, and feelings. It throws open the door to the worlds beyond our imagination. DMT exists in all of our bodies and occurs throughout the plant and animal kingdoms, right? And it's processed through a thing that we are very familiar called photosynthesis, right? And we know the power of the necessity of the sun, because the sun is what provides food, life, to plant life. And plant life really is no different to us, because we also need the sun to survive and operate. Okay, so there's a connection there, and pay attention. Is there a connection to the sun? Yes. I don't know if it was, it was the last, man, I'm not going to go into that here. Check out the last, if you're on Patreon and you didn't participate a few weeks back in the last Sith Dark Side Alchemy and Philosophy class, we talked about the 3 suns. I'm not going to get into that here because that's going to divert. But that class gets into some of what we're talking about here. But we went in pretty heavy on that. You get some time to check that out. All right, it is part of the normal makeup of humans and other mammals, marine animals, grasses and peas, toads and frogs, mushrooms and molds and barks and flowers and roots. When you're taking supplements like green algae, which has become very popular the last 20 to 25 years or so or more, all of those natural things, and there's a lot of supplements that deal with that. Mushrooms, there's different supplements now that have become big over the years, taking mushrooms in powder form and herbal form, shiitake, all these different type of mushrooms. All of these enhance and activate the DMT molecule because it's connected, right? Psychedelic alchemist Alexander Shulgin devotes an entire chapter to DMT in Tik-Tok, tryptamines I have known and loved. That's the name of the book. He aptly entitles the chapter "DMT is Everywhere" and declares DMT in this flower here, in that tree over there, and in yonder animal, it is most simply almost everywhere you choose to look. Indeed, it is getting to the point where one should report where DMT is not found rather than where it is. That's crazy. DMT is most abundant in plants of Latin America. Now, when we get into the shamans, the Native Americans, The Aztecs, the Mayans that incorporated a lot of plants, herbs, different root barks, they used that science that he's talking about here. That was the hallucinogens that were used in these rituals to activate the DMT molecule in the initiate or the adept that was going through the initiation in order for them to have those experiences, open them up to the spirit world. Their humans have known of its amazing properties for some tens of thousands of years. However, it is only in the last 150 years that we have gained some inkling of the antiquity of DMT's relationship with our species. So this goes deeper than just ayahuasca, mushrooms, and hallucinogens, right? We're talking about the very fabric of core of our existence, of nature and creation, and within ourselves. It's almost like what we're calling neuro and neuromelanin. There's a very similar thing there because neuro and neuromelanin, don't get the two twisted. They're two different things. As I've said before, neuromelanin is everything that exists within inside you. It encodes every organ in your body, your nervous system, your nerves. Without proper neuromelanin function, this also affects your spirituality. Now, Dr. Edward Bruce Pineal talks about that in Dark Light Consciousness, one of my favorite books that really gets into the science of understanding the aspect of melanin. Now, the neuromelanin is the manifestation of that in the pigmentation in the skin, right? So it's two different things, the neuro and the neuro. So it's the neuromelanin is what one needs to focus on first, right? So the pigmentation can be from very high yellow to pale to very dark brown, black, or blue black, right? And as I said before, contrary to belief, a darker skinned person needs more sunlight than a lighter skinned person, because a darker skinned person absorbs or uses more melatonin or burns more melanin off. So they need the sun to recharge them and they need to take in more of the sun. Whereas a very light skinned or fair skinned person doesn't. And that's why they might get sunburn or the sun might attack them, those who have very low traces of the neuromelanin, right? So don't get the two confused, right? They serve a purpose, but regardless, you could be Latino, Black, Asian, or European. Everybody needs their neuromelanin to be functioning properly internally, and everybody has the same capabilities and abilities to activate it to get their spirituality going in a certain direction, regardless of what the neuromelanin is on the outside. Now, is it harder for some to connect? Most definitely. Okay. So I'm trying to give you more scientific explanations of why maybe some people say they feel like they struggle to get results, or why is it harder for them? These could be some of the reasons why, right? I'm just using this as an example. And I've talked about other reasons that could be causing that. And this is why that last video I did, are you unknowingly destroying your magic? Because you may not have knowledge of this, right? And that's why I said in that video too, sometimes people they go through periods where they just describe like, I just feel out of sync. And that's the only way they can describe it. Like, I just feel out of whack. I don't know what it is. Can't get going. I've experienced it. I know what it is. I recognize it. And then the challenge is overcoming it, right? So, like I said, it's going to open the door to a lot of things. But let's continue. I want to get through this. All right. Beginning in the mid-1800s, explorers of the Amazon, particularly Richard Spruce from England and Alexander von Humboldt from Germany, described the effects of exotic mind-altering snuffs and brews prepared from plants by indigenous tribes. In the 20th century, the American botanist Richard Schultz continued this dangerous yet exciting line of fieldwork. Especially striking were the effects of and the manner of administering the psychoactive snuffs. All right. Latin American indigenous tribes continue to use these snuffs and have given them many names, including Yopo, Ipena, Jurima. They take huge doses, sometimes an ounce or more. One dramatic technique is for one snuffing partner to blow the powdery mixtures with considerable force, and I've seen this before, through a tube or pipe into the other's nose. Some tribes do this. The energy of the blast may be sufficient to drop the recipient to the ground. All right. Now, again, I'm going to kind of skip around, but you can read a little bit more on this. He gets into a lot of research here. He's giving you a lot of examples, but again, he's giving you also actual accounts and experiences from people. I'm not going to go through all that for the sake of time. Just want to skip around. All right, let me skip here. However, the discovery of DMT in the human body stimulated much less fanfare than did that of endorphins. As we will see later in this chapter, anti-psychedelic drug sentiment sweeping the country at the time actually turned researchers against studying endogenous DMT. The discoverers of endorphins, in contrast, won Nobel Prizes. The crucial question then naturally is, what is DMT doing in our body? Listen to this. Psychiatry's answer was perhaps it causes mental illness. See the trick? And that's why I was saying earlier what I was saying before. It can only create mental illness if you're already dealing with psychological mental disturbances. It can, right? But with a lot of these people who are in opposition to individuals exploring this, studying it, learning and mastering it, they're going to try to scare you at that point. Because what they don't want to tell you and they don't want to draw upon or build upon is how this can open you up to realms beyond, as it said earlier, beyond our imagination existence, opening you up to spiritual things of a nature your imagination couldn't even comprehend. Right? So this is the reason why they don't draw upon that fact. So this is why I say you do your research. Again, I do say it's very important to be in a sound mind, especially psychologically and mentally, right? That's where an illness can creep in and become worse, like psychosis, for an example, right? So he goes on to say this reply was reasonable considering psychiatry's mandate to understand and treat serious psychopathology. However, it fell short of all other possible scientifically meritorious answers. By limiting themselves to investigating DMT's role in psychosis, scientists lost a unique opportunity to probe deeper into the mysteries of consciousness. That's why I said what I just said. Nobody's denying the fact, if you're not in a sound mind, it can create psychosis and mental illness. That nobody's ever disputed that. Anybody that's familiar with this topic, I don't think that's the issue. But that's the part that I was just saying that they don't draw upon, as he describes Dr. Strassman, an opportunity to probe deeper into the mysteries of consciousness. See, that's the part they don't want to tell you, right? Because then they can dumb you down and indoctrinate you and feed you religious and systems of stupidity and faith and belief, because they don't want you to have deeper understanding of this consciousness, right? Scientists believe that LSD and other psychometrics induced a short-term model psychosis in normal volunteers. They thought that by finding an endogenous psychometric, the cause of and of potential cures for serious mental illnesses might be at hand. DMT is the first known endogenous psychotomimetic suggested the search might be over. For example, one could give DMT to normal volunteers to induce psychosis and eventually develop new medications to block its effect on them. Subsequently, psychiatric patients would receive this anti-DMT if excessive naturally produced DMT was causing the patient's psychosis. So they literally have medications to block, as he refers to it, it's called anti-DMT medications. Because now this is science for you guys to understand, for those that might have yourself or deal with people who are committed into psychiatric places. This is what they do. So part of the way how they attack somebody who they feel is dealing with psychosis or psychological and mental issues, they design medications to attack because they believe it's the DMT molecule causing it. Ain't that some shit? And now the question is, what if it's not? They don't talk about what damage could it be creating outside of that spectrum now. Say you're focusing on attacking the DMT molecule with these anti-DMT medications. And this is why I said that's why some people come out of those places and they're never the same. Some of them become like fucking zombies because that wasn't the root cause of where they needed to attack the psychosis. Now, again, I want to make it clear, I'm not a doctor and I'm not claiming to be. I'm telling you, do your research. This is why they have a formula and a map, a blueprint of when you go in there, they just follow the blueprint. Okay. So there are a lot of doctors who deal with psychiatric medication and help, and this is how they approach it with patients. They study the production of the DMT. Okay. And this is how they determine to make statements about somebody and say, well, you're crazy. What labels somebody crazy? And look at the bullshit term they use. They say, you're insane. How can you be insane in your sanity, right? Because the word sane has root in the word sanity. How can you be insane or in your sanity? Shouldn't they say you're outsane? You're out of your sanity, right? Wouldn't that make more sense? So there's trickery and fuckery in all those terms that they use and how they try to title it. But that is very interesting if you research that even further. These DMT investigations were just getting up to speed when in 1970, Congress passed a law placing it and other psychedelics into a highly restricted legal category. It became nearly impossible to conduct any new human DMT research. Soon after, in 1976, a paper published by scientists in the United National Institute of Mental Health, or NIMH, told the death knell for human DMT studies. The authors were top flight researchers, several of whom had given DMT to humans. They correctly concluded that the evidence related DMT to schizophrenia was complex and uncertain. And that's the reason why I think it's wrong to attack somebody who's dealing with psychosis or psychological issues exclusively via the DMT or anti-DMT medications. There's your reason why. Okay. So it hasn't been proven that that's 100% the way to do it. Okay. And there's a lot of uncertainty there. However, rather than suggesting more refined and careful research into the areas of disagreement, the authors concluded, like any good scientific theory, the DMT model of schizophrenia will ultimately live or die by the data that it heuristically generates. We hope that within the foreseeable future, forthcoming data will give this theory either a new lease on life or a decent burial. So they don't really know. And that's usually the case. The decent burial came soon enough. Within a year or two, the last paper on human DMT research appeared. Few scientists shed tears to mark its passing. Was DMT buried alive by those whose careers and reputations were endangered by the controversial area of research? The DMT psychosis field was no different from any other biological psychiatric research endeavor investigating complex and uncertain relationships between the mind and the brain. Encouraging its abandonment appears to have been as much politically as scientifically motivated. In general, there were two types of studies investigating the DMT psychosis theory. One compared blood levels of DMT between ill patients and normal volunteers. The other study designed compared the subjective effects of psychedelic drugs to those of naturally occurring psychotic states. Okay. The NIMH team that discounted the theory of DMT psychosis relationship leading to the demise of human DMT research critiqued both approaches. They pointed to the lack of consistent differences between blood levels of DMT in normal volunteers and psychotic patients. They also rejected claims that the effects of DMT and symptoms of schizophrenia demonstrated enough similarities to justify additional research. So that was proven wrong. Okay. Again, when you got time, read more. I'm not going to go through all this. I do want to get into this part here. So what is DMT doing to our bodies? Okay, I haven't said all that. You can read more of that when you get the time. DMT is the simplest of the tryptamine psychedelics. Okay, and this is why, for an example, that people who use things such as shrooms or ayahuasca, it's measured in what I'm about to show you. That's how they gauge it. That's how they measure it. And that's how it's done in certain levels. And then that correlates to exactly the exact quantity that one would take, right? So DMT is the simplest of tryptamine psychedelics compared to other molecules. DMT is rather small. Its weight is 188 molecular units. You know how small that is? Meaning that it is not significantly larger than glucose, the simplest sugar in our bodies, which weighs 180 molecular units and only 10 times heavier than a water molecule. That's how tiny, which weighs 18 molecular units. By comparison, consider the weight of LSD at 323 molecular units, or a mescaline at 211. That's another hallucinogen, right? DMT is closely related to serotonin, the neurotransmitter that psychedelics affect so widely. Now, this is why they also say serotonin and melatonin levels, which is connected to proper sleep, has a certain effect on the body. Is there a connection with the melatonin and serotonin with the DMT levels in the body? Absolutely, right? And if you remember, there was a big craze in the 90s. I know it's still around. People still take it. I remember when melatonin first came on the scene. At the time, I'm going back to the mid 90s. At the time, I was a manager at GNC, General Nutrition Center. And I remember around that time when it first came out, people were coming in the store buying bottles of that shit, because they say that the melatonin can help people who have insomnia or people who have issues sleeping because of the common effects it induces on the body. It activates the serotonin levels, and there's a connection there with the DMT, right? And it can be effective if you're obviously taking a good quality, right? All right. The pharmacology of DMT is similar to that of other well-known psychedelics. It affects receptor sites of serotonin in much the same way that LSD, psilocybin, and mescaline do. These serotonin receptors are widespread throughout the body and can be found in blood vessels, muscle glands, and even your skin. Ain't that crazy? Even your skin. However, the brain is where, this is the most important part, and what I'm trying to show you here tonight. However, the brain is where DMT exerts its most interesting effects. And that's more where we're focusing on. But I also wanted to show you, as he said earlier, it's not so much a matter of where DMT is, it's a matter of where it's not. When he was connecting it to plant life, micro, all of that stuff, which I thought was amazing. All right. So however, the brain is where DMT exerts its most interesting effects. There, sites rich in these DMT sensitive serotonin receptors are involved in mood, perception, and thought. Let me stop there for a minute. How important is that to our ritual work, especially perception, right? Mood, I mean, they're all three of those things are connected: mood, perception, and thought. But how you perceive things and your perception of things is how you're going to absorb consciousness. So this is why people can perceive things differently. Some level of consciousness, I might perceive it one way. Somebody might have a whole different perception on that. Doesn't mean one is right, one is wrong, or one is wrong and one is right. It just means that's the way that person absorbed that consciousness. This right, wrong, truth, correct thing can be a little bit misleading, because this is what I mean now when I say everything of a spiritual nature isn't going to be found in some source, in some book. Okay, because now when we're dealing with this aspect of it, it takes it to a level beyond that. Okay, although the brain denies access to most drugs and chemicals, it takes a particular and remarkable fancy to DMT. It is not stretching the truth to suggest that the brain hungers for it. Hear that? The brain hungers for it. When you dumb yourself down so much with low vibrational frequency and energy, and you're absorbing so much aspects of consciousness that is creating that, dumbing you down and indoctrinating you, it kind of shuts you down and disconnects you. Okay. The brain is a highly sensitive organ, especially susceptible to toxins and metabolic imbalances. A nearly impenetrable shield, the blood-brain barrier, prevents unwelcome agents from leaving the blood and crossing the capillary walls into the brain tissue. This defense extends even to keeping out the complex carbohydrates and fats that other tissues use for energy. The brain burns instead only the purest form of fuel, simple sugar or glucose. Okay. All right. There's a little more research there you can read on your own. So now I want to get into, so what does DMT do into our bodies? More specifically, let's ask, why do we make DMT in our bodies? The answer is because it is the spirit molecule. It is the sole source and responsible reason why you have your spiritual experiences. It is the reason what activates awareness. It is the reason when we say we have DNA explosions that you hear me talk about over the years, that is the root foundation of why you have those DNA explosions. It is the reason why you have those aha moments. It is the reason why you experience what we call Keppera when we deal with the systems of ancient Kemet and black magic and Set and the whole science of Set and how that's connected to Keppera. This is all connected and in alignment with it. What then is the spirit molecule and what must it do and how might it do it? Why is DMT the prime candidate? These are good questions. Okay. Visionary artist Alex Gray has sketched an inspiring rendition of a DMT molecules. You'll see the picture for yourself. Alex Art helped me begin thinking about these questions more clearly. Let's look at it carefully and consider how it reflects the necessary properties of such a chemical. Let's talk about this real quick. I got a couple more things I want to get into. I want to get into the Pineal and DMT and how it's connected, and then I'll go to the chapter. Bear with me. I do want to get through this because there's a lot of good stuff in here. A spirit molecule needs to elicit with reasonable reliability certain psychological states we consider spiritual. Okay, we're talking about the spirit molecule that it creates. These are feelings of extraordinary joy, timelessness, and the DMT molecule is the understanding of what you always hear me talking about. Time is one continuous moment. There's only the present. There's only the now. That's connected to this. That's why I say it all the time over the years. And certainty that what we are experiencing is more real than real. Such a substance may lead us to an acceptance of the coexistence of opposites such as life and death, good and evil. A knowledge that consciousness continues after death. A deeper understanding of the basic unity of all phenomena and a sense of wisdom or love pervading all existence. A spirit molecule also leads us to the spiritual realms. These worlds usually are invisible to us and our instruments and are not accessible using our normal state of consciousness. However, just as likely as the theory that these worlds exist only in our minds, all is mental, mental is all, the universe is mental, is that they are in reality outside of us and freestanding. Okay? If we simply change our brain's receiving abilities, we can apprehend and interact with them. And this is why I say you're dealing with two worlds or paradigms side by existence, your inner world and your outer world, and you're jumping both from back to forth. Okay? I'm trying to give you clarity. A lot of the reason why I say those things over the years is coming from this type of information. People don't understand. They don't know what the occult and the left-hand path really is. Don't judge everybody that's teaching the occult or the left-hand path. Don't put them all in the same category because we're not. I'm not teaching that traditional left, hail Satan and all that. I'm not teaching that nonsense. Okay? That's not what this is about. Don't get it fucked up. Okay? That's why you always hear me like to use the term more a path of self-mastery. That's what this is. That's what the occult and the left-hand path is. It is a path of self-mastery. You are the God. You are the goddess, the sole controller, the ruler of your spiritual sovereignty. Not somebody outside of you, not somebody above you, not somebody who you have embraced that you feel you're inferior to. Some old man God sitting in a chair with a long white beard. None of that shit, right? We don't embrace the sky daddy here. We are the sky daddy, okay? That's the difference, okay? Furthermore, keep in mind that a spirit molecule is not spiritual in and of itself. Excuse me. It is a tool or a vehicle. Think of it as a tugboat, a chariot, a scout, a horseback, something to which we can hitch our consciousness. This is very interesting. It pulls us into the worlds known only to itself. We need to hold on tight. We must be prepared for spiritual realms, include both heaven and hell, both fantasy and nightmare. While the spirit molecule's role may seem angelic, there's no guarantee it will not take us to the demonic. Ain't that fucking interesting? Ain't that interesting? This is why people will describe when they have their experiences on hallucinogens or psychedelics. What he's not talking about here, because he's not really, this is not really a book dealing with a left-hand path spirituality. What he's not telling you here is because the reason why that happens is you're going to encounter everything you created and experience that's in your mind, everything you've absorbed from a small child to an adult. So whatever fears you embrace, for an example, if you were a young child and you watched horror movies and created fears and monsters from those horror movies, you will unlock those fears and those anxieties. So he's correct when he says it's not all angelic and it's not all heavenly. I love that part. There's no guarantee it will not take us to the demonic. He's politely telling you, put your seatbelt on, buckle up, because you're going to experience some shit. Basically what he's saying, trying to dumb it down. Okay? And I'm trying to give you the real on it and add on top of that kind of what he's not really telling you. Okay? So why is DMT so attractive a candidate for being the spirit molecule? Its effects are extraordinarily and fully psychedelic. We have read some of the earliest reports of these properties from unprepared and unsuspecting research subjects who participated in the first clinical studies in the 1950s and 60s. We will read much more about how truly mind-boggling are DMT's effects in our own very experienced and well-prepared volunteers. Equally important is that DMT occurs in our bodies. We produce it naturally. Further proving what I've said many times, you don't need to take hallucinogens is not the only way to activate it. You're activating it and enhancing it and creating high levels of it every time you do your spiritual work. Now I hope you understand why I say you must be consistent at what you do. I'm not saying it just to be saying it. If there's natural levels of it there with us in our body and we produce it, how do you produce it in larger quantities to open yourself up to greater spiritual experiences? There it is. This is why I try to tell people, it's not I'm leaving you hanging over the years. There's some things you're going to have to figure out on your own. People don't understand when I say that, oh, Baniti's leaving me cold in the dust. No, I'm not. I'm trying to get you to see something that is, you can't just see it. Words can't explain it. It's something you must see and feel and experience. That's why. So now when you hear me say you must be consistent in your work and what you do, this is why I'm saying it, people. If there's natural levels of DMT, they're always present within our bodies. It's always there. There's ways that to activate it, there's ways to induce it. How you activate it? Through your ritual work, people. How? By speeding up your vibrational frequency, because frequency is what activates it. Because whether you're using a certain herb, element, root, or hallucinogen, all that's doing is speeding up the vibrational frequency to activate that molecule. And once that molecule is activated, and certain hallucinogens and herbs and barks and roots and plants and all these things that he's talking about here, it just speeds up the natural process of it. Okay? I hope we're getting this. All right. So it occurs in our bodies. We produce it naturally. Our brain seeks it out, pulls it in, and readily digests it. And as he said earlier, sometimes it starves for it. It requests it. So what does that mean? Just think about sometimes where over the years where you've had this burning urge and desire to gain knowledge and wisdom. Where do you think that comes from? So I would say the symbolic story of Solomon in the Bible, he had some serious DMT activation going on, because what did he ask the Creator for? He didn't want all the wealth. He got all that afterwards, but what did he ask for? He wanted all the knowledge and the wisdom. So he must have been having DMT explosions going on. Okay. But anytime you feel that burning desire, that hunger for knowledge, that's your brain wanting to be fed that molecule. You understand where we're going with this now? That's the brain wants craving, it's hungering to be fed that molecule. Okay. All right. As an endogenous psychedelic, DMT may be involved in naturally occurring psychedelic states that have nothing to do with taking drugs, but whose similarities to drug-induced conditions are striking. While these states certainly can include psychosis, we must also include in our discussion conditions outside of mental illness. It may be upon endogenous DMT wings that we experience other life-changing states of mind associated with birth, death, and near-death entity or alien contact experiences and mystical/spiritual consciousness. These we will explain in much greater detail later, and there's a whole section on it. In this chapter, we have learned what about DMT. We now need to turn our attention to the how and the where. All right. We have prepared the groundwork into which we may now induce the mysterious pineal gland in its role as a potential spirit gland or producer of endogenous DMT. The pineal is the topic of the next two chapters. Let's go into it real quick. The pineal meeting the spirit gland. I'm almost there. I'm going to get to your questions, your comments. Oh, I see Patra. I see you at the bottom there. I just saw your name there. Green, it's good to see you here. Hope everything is well. All right. One of my deepest motivations behind the DMT research was the search for a biological basis of spiritual experience. I don't know why I just stopped in this. I guess it was seeing actually Patra there made me remember. For some of you, I'm going to post something on my social media pages. Some of you knew, I just haven't talked about it because I wanted to let some time go by, and Spirit just stopped me to talk about it. I wanted to let some time go by. I wanted things to settle in and certain things to be done. Some of you who she's been in here, I've had her actually on the show. I've known her for years. Some of you guys know Sister Danny, who was from the Bronx. Some of you may not know she passed away, unfortunately, unexpectedly, a few weeks back. I didn't talk about it, didn't want to post anything yet because I wanted the family to do their thing, get all the the arrangements and things that needed to be taken care of. I am going to post a tribute to her. I know a lot of you did know her. Things do happen, unfortunately, unexpectedly. She was a good person. Her and her husband Will, they were good people. I did work with her and knew her since 2019, I believe, and did a lot of work with her over the years. A lot of work with her husband over the years. I actually watched their whole relationship, marriage. I probably know more about it than they did. It's crazy. But she was a very good person, very funny person. Had a great personality, great spirit. I just wanted to honor her, remember her. I know some of you knew her. Some of you in here knew her personally, and seeing some of you pop in reminded me of I wanted to acknowledge Danny. One thing I will never forget about her is her laugh. She had the craziest laugh. It's just unique. And it was a funny laugh that made you laugh. It was just a funny sounding laugh that even if you were in an irritated mood, you couldn't help but laugh. So, my condolences to her husband, Will, who I've spoke with briefly and we're going to be speaking to her family, to those of you guys that knew her. Some of you are in here, you did know her. And seeing Patra pop in, that made me remember. I will post something in remembrance of her. And it's just a reminder too, as I said before, life is short, right? You hear these cliches, nothing's guaranteed, anything can happen, right? So I just wanted to pause for a quick minute and, and acknowledge that. Gone, as they say. I hate to use these cliches, but not forgotten, right? Yeah. All right. Wanted to throw that in there. All right. So the pineal meeting the spirit gland. One of my deepest motivations behind the DMT research for the biological basis of spiritual experience, much of what I have learned over the years. All right, but I'm going to skip down. All right. This is him just getting into how he came to the read, but let's get into the connection here. Where is it? All right. Building upon my investigating what was known about the pineal gland, a tiny organ situated in the middle of the brain, I wrote several papers for classes that school year that began to lay the broad framework of the theories. Western and Eastern mystical traditions are replete with descriptions of a blinding bright white light accompanying deep spiritual realization. The enlightenment usually is the result of progression of conscious through various levels of spiritual, psychological, and ethical development. All mystical traditions describe the process and the stages. And we know in a lot of different systems, there is this explanation or breakdown of the function and of the pineal gland, its role and what it does, right? In Judaism, for example, consciousness moves through the Sephirot, right? When you're dealing with the Kabbalistic tree, right? Or the Kabbalistic centers of spiritual development, the highest being Keter or crown, or Kether, some say. In Eastern Ayurvedic tradition, these centers are called chakras. And particular experiences likewise accompany the movement of energy through them. The highest chakra is called the crown or the 1,000-petaled lotus. In both traditions, the location of this crown or sephira or chakra is the center and the top of the skull, anatomically corresponding to the human pineal gland. We first read about the physical pineal gland in the writings of Herophilius, a 3rd century Greek physician from the time of Alexander the Great. Its name comes from the Latin pineus, relating to the pine or pinus. The little organ and thus pineform was shaped, that's why they call it the pineal gland, like a pine cone, because it looks like a small pine cone. No bigger than the nail on your pinky finger. That's how small it is, literally, right? The pineal gland is unique in its solitary status within the brain. All other brain sites are paired, meaning that they have left and right counterparts. For example, there are left and right frontal lobes and left and right temporal lobes. As the only unpaired organ deep within the brain, the pineal gland remained an anatomical curiosity for nearly 2,000 years. No one in the West had any idea what its function was. Interest in the pineal accelerated after it attracted René Descartes' attention. This 17th century French philosopher and mathematician who said, "I think, therefore I am," needed a source for those thoughts. Introspection showed him that it was possible to think only one thought at a time. From where in the brain might these unpaired solitary thoughts arise? Descartes proposed that the pineal, the only singleton organ of the brain, generated thoughts. And now let me stop. And that's why I said they're attacking you with these low vibrational frequencies and focusing on the pineal, because this is how they can telepathically through these frequencies send energy waves there and induce or influence your thoughts because of what Descartes came up with, right? So this is the attack. These are the distractions, the blockages they're creating, the illusions they're creating. And don't look, we know they can use sound waves to send all types of frequencies and altered thought patterns. That's something they've been doing for years. Okay, that's nothing new. That's basic science. So you must be very aware of when you're on the spiritual battlefield. When you're doing your ritual work, you are going to battle. You're not at war in the sense that you're at war with yourself. You're only at war with yourself in the sense that you're trying to combat the ignorance that you've been programmed with. So the war you face when you go into the ritual room, you must be prepared for what you're going to experience, because there's nothing that can fully 100% prepare you for what you're going to experience in your ritual work. And this is why I always try to tell people, don't manipulate the situation, because you can't do that. Yes, we manipulate energy when we work magic, but Don't try to map out the experience that you want, because that experience you want may not be what you need. So when you go into it with your own false expectations, that's sometimes how you can get yourself jammed up or fucked up. Okay. That creates issues or problems, right? All right. Introspection showed him that it was possible to think only one thought at a time, from where the brain might these unpaired solitary thoughts arise. Descartes proposed that the pineal is the only singleton organ of the brain that generated thoughts. In addition, he believed the pineal's location above one of the crucial byways for the cerebrospinal fluid made this function even more likely. Okay. The ventricle hollow cavities deep within the brain produced cerebrospinal fluid. This clear, salty, protein-rich fluid provides cushioning for the brain, protecting it from sudden jolts and bumps. It also carries nutrients to and waste products away from deep brain tissue. In Descartes' time, the ebb and flow of cerebrospinal fluid through the ventricles seemed perfectly suited for the corresponding movements of thought. If the pineal gland secreted thoughts into the cerebrospinal fluid, what better means for the stream of consciousness to make its way to the rest of the brain? That's why I was describing earlier, the story of Jacob's ladder is describing this process. When you're reading the story in the Bible of Jacob's ladder, you're reading the story of the cerebrospinal fluid traveling up the spinal column to the brain. And then it says what? As I said earlier in the story, his name is changed now to Israel. He who ascension to El is what that translates at. Went from Yaqub to Israel. It says he wrestled with God at a place called Pineal. That almost sounds phonetically similar to Pineal. So somebody's intentionally putting this stuff in there. They're describing this process here. This is what that story is. What I just read right here. And like I told you, look, I've said before, don't get it twisted. I don't have a problem with the Bible when you read it for what it is, when you read it from an esoterical occult perspective. I have a problem with the Bible when men who created these man-made dogmas, this man worship, this spookism, this faith and belief dogma that can't be proven, that's when the Bible becomes dangerous when it's used in the form of religion. And that's why I formed a class called Esoterical Occult Bible Study class. And these are the things we discuss in the class. It's not what you think it is. These are the things we discuss in the Esoterical Occult Bible Study class. I take you word verbatim from Genesis to Revelation, and we'll get ready to go through the 114 chapters of the Quran, which is another occult book that was grafted from esoterical occult knowledge and information. All right, we'll get into that another time. All right. Descartes also had a deep spiritual side. He believed that thinking or the human imagination was basically a spiritual phenomenon made possible by our divine nature, not our mortal nature, not our indoctrinated nature, not our weaker side, but by our divine nature, what we share with God, because you are God. Okay? That was the first trick to steer you away from this level of information, was to create a dogma that taught you to look as far outside of yourself you could to understanding the Creator. Okay? So why not create a dogma that says, way out there beyond the clouds and the stars and in far reaches of outer space, there's this spooky place called heaven, which comes from the Greek word haven, which is a place of hiding or enclosure. That's a whole nother story. There's this spook god that exists out there, and create this fairy tale that one day you'll get there through all these rules and regulations and stipulations and this, that, and the other. So the goal was to take you as far away from within, from away from yourself as they could, to create a dogma that would keep you so dumbed down and distanced from understanding this, then they can control you and use the vibrational frequency and energy of an emotion called fear, right? And create all types of fear scenarios that dumb down this D.M.T or spirit molecule from being activated. See, this is not what you thought it was going to be tonight. right? You probably thought I was just going to be talking about ayahuasca and mushrooms and shit like that. There's a lot more to this, people. Okay. All right. That is our thoughts or expressions of and proof of the existence, check this out, of our soul. Yes, and I've said for many years, your soul is the very essence of who and what you are. And soul and spirit are two different things. There will be people who say they're the same thing. They are not the same thing. The spirit is a reflection of the very essence of the soul and what it's feeling, and the spirit is the manifestation of the expression of the soul. The soul is the very essence of who and what you are, and it lives on eternally. That's the part of you that we refer to as an energy band, right? That's the part of we refer to the energy aspect or the vibrational frequency of things. The spirit reflects that. Dogs and animals have spirits because they can express when they're feeling sad or emotional, just like humans can. But the question is, do animals have a soul? Be careful before you answer that. Okay. Do they? Yes? No? All right. That is our thoughts, expression, or proof of the existence of hell. Descartes believed that the pineal gland played an essential role in the expression of the soul. Although the soul is joined, check this out, that's why I say it's the very essence of who you are, with the entire body, there's one part of the body, the pineal, in which it exercises its function more than elsewhere. So is the pineal also a root seat connection to the soul? Is that why they refer to it as the soul or seat center of your spirituality? The pineal is so suspended between the passages containing the animal spirits, guiding reasons and carrying sensation and movement, your animal nature, that it can be moved by them and it carries this motion on to the soul. Then conversely, the body machine is so constituted that whenever the gland is moved in one way or another by the soul, and for that matter, by any other cause, it pushes the animal spirits which surround it to the pores of the brain. Descartes thus proposed that the pineal gland somehow was the seat of the soul. We've heard that term. It came up earlier. You hear this you've read this in a lot of books. People have used this term to explain different aspects of the pineal and spirituality. Is it the seat of the soul? It can be classified as that because of the function and the role it serves, okay? Or the intermediary between the spiritual and the physical, the body and the spirit met there, each affecting the other and the repercussions extending in both directions. How close to the truth was Descartes? What do we know about the biology of the pineal gland? Can we relate this biology to the nature of spirit? These are great questions. The pineal gland of evolutionary older animals, such as lizards and amphibians, is also called the third eye, the reptilian eye. This is why you see the kundalini, the serpent energy, when we work with the occult or the left-hand path, working with draconian spirituality and black magic. Anything working with the dragon energy or the dragon current or the reptilian, and you always see the reptilian eye is a representation of the activation of the pineal gland. This filters into other systems of spirituality, the all-seeing eye of Ra in ancient Egypt. This is what this is all alluding to. If you're a Mason, sometimes you go into lodge and you look in the Far East with the compass and the square, you'll see imposed in the center, sometimes it's G for the grand architect of the universe, or you see an eye, which is also represented of that goat or grand architect or the grand inspector of the universe, the all-seeing eye of God, which represents high states of consciousness, awakening, and levels of spirituality, because the Masonic degrees are very occult and esoterical in nature. And if you're a Mason, you know what I'm talking about. But it also transitions into the draconian current of the left-hand path and the occult, right? That's why you always see the reptilian eye or the eye, right? And I work a lot of it in the draconian path. I actually have a pendant that's charged with that, what we call in the reptilian eye, which is that dragon energy or current that's linked into the activation of the pineal, which is the root seat of the soul. So when you're working the draconian current, you're working with the root seat and soul of your spirituality. When you're raising that kundalini energy, all of that, it's all connected, people. Okay? Again, it's not what people think. Okay? It gets even more interesting. I'm almost done here. Just like the two seeing eyes, the third eye possesses a lens, a cornea, and a retina. It is light sensitive and helps regulate body temperature and skin coloration. Two basic survival functions intimately related to environmental light. Melatonin, remember I was talking about that earlier? The primary pineal hormone is present in primitive pineal glands. So when there was this melatonin that's so popular today that really came on the scene real hardcore in the 90s, that's supposed to help you relax and sleep and induce the natural states and biorhythms of the body to get into that alpha state and relaxation to sleep, is because the melatonin also works on the primitive parts of the pineal gland. Coincidence? Absolutely not. Okay. So the importance of that is also connected to proper sleep levels. This shit, there's levels to this, people. As animals climbed the evolutionary ladder, the pineal moved inward deeper into the brain, more hidden, removed from outside influences. While the bird pineal no longer sits on the top of the skull, it remains sensitive to outside light because of the paper-thin surrounding bones. The mammalian, including human, pineal is buried even deeper in the brain's recesses and is not directly sensitive to light, at least in adults. In babies, it is. You want to know why? Because there's a soft spot there. So the first thing they do when a baby is born, what do? In the doctor's house, you all do. You put a hat, you put a skull cap on the baby. And notice when an infant is small, there's a very soft spot right where that pineal is very soft. So it's very sensitive and it can be affected by light. Okay. Now I always ask this question. Why in a lot of these religions, think about this for a minute now, whether it's Judaism, Christianity, ancient Christianity, and Islam, why is there this thing of covering the head all the time? Are they is that symbolic of them dumbing you down and cutting you off from your consciousness because they're covering the pineal? So you wear either a kufi or an emma, right? I understand the science. They say, well, you put the kufi on, you wrap the emma, it represents the pyramid, the level of knowledge. All right, that's cool. Breakdown and definition, but why are we covering the pineal? I understand in a small child, because again, that part right there when they're first born is very soft, it's very sensitive. And that's why you put that skull cap on small infants when they come out or in the early stages. Okay. It is interesting to speculate that as the pineal assumes a more spiritual role, it needs the greater protection from the environment afforded by such deep placement in the skull. The human pineal gland becomes visible in the developing fetus at 7 weeks or 49 days. Okay. 7 times 7 is what? 49. After conception, 7 days of creation, right? We'll get into more. I mean, we was finding out this is nearly the exact moment in which one can clearly see the first indication of a male or female gender. Before this time, the sex of the fetus is indeterminate or unknown. Thus, the pineal gland and the most important differentiation of humanity, male and female gender, appear at the same time. So is there a connection with the manifestation of gender in correlation to the evolving and growth of the pineal gland within humans? Absolutely. Okay. This explains the physical manifestation of the part of gender. Okay. This is shit they don't want you to know. Now, I don't want to get into anything controversial. Let me not do that. We'll leave that alone for now. Maybe we'll leave that for Patreon. I don't want to do it here openly. That opens a can of worms. The human pineal gland is not actually part of the brain. Rather, it develops from specialized tissues in the roof of the fetal mouth. From there, it migrates to the center of the brain, where it seems to have the best seat in the house. We have already noted the pineal's proximity to cerebral spinal fluid channels, which allows its secretions easy access to the brain's deepest recesses. Additionally, it sits in strategic closeness to the crucial emotional and sensory brain centers. Now, do you see the importance of it? When I've been talking about for years, the decalcifying of the pineal gland, and when you have a calcified pineal gland, the issues, the obstructions it can create for you physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So this is why I was telling you guys in the end of the year class, they're getting ready to attack us harder with these frequencies, and that's the target, people. because they know if they target that and destroy that, it's going to affect and filter out into so many areas of your life and your spirituality, including your physical health and your mental state. So one thing I work heavy with the deities now is invoke them to be in a sound mental mind for good mental and physical health. I encourage all you guys to incorporate that in your spiritual work, especially in these days and times. Okay. And I'm saying that more from a spiritual perspective. Okay. All right. Got a few more things. I'm almost done. There's a lot in here, man. I could be here forever. There's a lot. I'm not going to be able to get through all this. I mean, I think I think you get the point, right? I don't want to be on this forever. I want to get to some questions, some comments. I mean, there's some good stuff in here. I could probably do a part 2. There's just too much. I'll be here forever. And I've only scratched surface with this. There's a lot. All right. I think that touches on, you kind of get where I'm going with this. All right. Let me just do a quick check-in here. Make sure we're still good here. Yeah, we are still good here. All right. I'm going to go through some of your questions and your comments. Let me go up to the top. So you got some comments, got some questions, a lot. You should have some thoughts, questions, and comments on it. So I'm going to spend a little more time, try to cut this in maybe 30 minutes or so, hour max. All right. So again, infernal blessings to all. If I didn't greet you guys earlier, I know somebody came in earlier. I see some greetings. Greetings to you all. Hot Headius, Merciless Butcher, everybody else. All right. Let me see questions. Ruben C has a question. He says, "Hi, Baniti. What are your thoughts on creating an alter ego to help manifest your success? It seems like a lot of artists and athletes have some form of alter ego that help with their success." That's a good question. From a magical perspective, I think you can ritualize that. I think you can take that from what we do on this path in the cult, ritualize it, and create, like you say, an alter ego geared towards accomplishing a certain goal. And you're right, artists have done that, right? Have created, because the alter ego is centered around everything that they want to become, right? I think it's a great thing that can be utilized ritualistically in your magic to achieve your goals. So yeah, I mean, I think if there's a way that you can incorporate that, yeah, I think that's actually would be a good thing to do if it's done correctly. Yeah, that's a good question. So it makes me think about something. Hot hitters. He says, "Are you ever going to touch on the Native American customs?" I've done. There's one video I did. It's been a while. I don't have a lot of information in my archives on that. It's crazy because I have spirit guides that are Native American that I work with in my spiritual work. So that's definitely something to consider to do more of. But if you go back, there's one I did on here a couple of years ago on a lot of those rituals, spiritual practices, and customs. But no, I have not done a lot. But that's definitely something to consider moving forward. And it's a great system of spirituality. So that's definitely something I'll try to remember to incorporate. What else we got? Read, yes, Graham Hancock. I actually had Graham Hancock on the old Awakening Universal Mind show. I actually interviewed him a few years back. He has some good books too, dealing with metaphysical and some supernatural spiritual work. But I have heard of his book, Supernatural, a great book for learning about the history of psychedelics, going back to the ancient cave paintings and also shamanism across time. So there's another good reference that Iridu put in there. Graham Hancock, that's another good book, Supernatural, where he gets into some of the mystical and spiritual aspects of this. He has his some good breakdowns in that book. So thank you for sharing that. Melissa says, "Benny, what are your thoughts on the use of absinthe for activating the spirit world within?" I mean, there's a lot of like even mentioned in here, even going back to some other things, like mescaline. That's something I haven't heard in a while when I came across this book. So if you have the knowledge and the principles of how anything that has the ability to activate and open your psyche is going to activate your spirit world within. So if you understand the properties of that and how it can work to do that, yes, it too can be effective just like anything else that's in that same spectrum or category. And that's why any of those things are in that category of opening up your psyche, but also just like everything else, know how it affects it. Obviously, there's always going to be, I don't know if it's the good and the bad, if that's the right term, but the things you need to be aware of. So, yes, I'm sure it could if utilized correctly. Okay. The Swift one said, "Is it possible for ayahuasca to help take you through something like the clear path or activating something similar to the black flame?" Yes, very, very possible. People have described it doing very bizarre, as he described in the book earlier, opening you up to things beyond what you can possibly imagine. It can be centralized or geared towards that. I've known people who have used it in that regards and form, but I can tell you the experience is going to probably be very abstract to what you think it would be, and I can only explain that in very minimal words. Because again, everybody's going to have a variance of a different experience. But yes, it can be centered in that work. I've known people to do it, and I've talked with them, and they've shared their experience with me. Ridu says those cave paintings depicted persons being destroyed and put back together again. Correct. I've also heard you talk about destruction and rebirth. Interesting that this stuff goes back very far. Yes, that deconstruction, reconstruction concept is one of the foundational principles of this spiritual path and many indigenous spiritual paths. Because it's always about recognizing who you are, your strengths and your weaknesses, and realizing everything must be deconstructed and put back together. That's what initiation is about. That's what going through a process of an initiatory system, being raised as a master, is to go through that deconstruction process to be reconstructed. That's what death and rebirth is. Even when you look in the Masonic Lodge, right? You're past, raised, and resurrected, right? Life, birth, life, and death. Right on the third degree, you're raised up with the grip of the lion's paw grip of a master mason. You're resurrected from the ashes. At the end of the degree, you're pulled up in the lion's paw grip, which really is the substitute word of a master mason, I might add. Okay, without saying too much, being a mason myself for many years, that for those who stopped at the Blue House, remember the word you got was the substitute word of a master mason. When you further your studies, whether you go the Royal Ark or you go the Scottish Rite, which really are meeting at the same place, the Royal Ark gets more into the Hebrew mysticism and getting into more of the Hebrew or mysteries, where the Scottish Rite degrees deal with more, in my opinion, esoteric or occult information. Have a degree, for an example, called the Rose Cross, which gets into some of what are very familiar, similar teachings of the Rosicrucian order about understanding the divine within the self, and it goes a whole bunch of other places. But that whole thing is all connected and filtered in this whole rebirth or death reconstruction. And look at it with a lot of the deities that we work with on this path. A lot of them, Kali, Lilith, Lucifer, Samael, the list goes on and on. This is why they are superior deities and are a representation of, and deities are archetypes in the sense, because I don't want to create that separation. Just like I was saying with other highly intelligent life forms, stop looking at them as they are inferior aspects outside of yourself, right? You are connected to them. They are connected to you. And this is why I always use the term, you walk side by side with the spirits. You don't worship them, okay? The worship is when certain men intervene to create systems of control so they can indoctrinate and control you for power, right? We don't worship, okay? We don't worship. Sounds very similar to the word warship, right? There's a reason for that. All right. So yes, it goes very far back. That's a good observation. Shemshu Netra says, yes, when I do 16 grams of shrooms, okay, before ritual work, I'm in a different consciousness, spiritual awareness is height. 100%. So there definitely is a connection there. It definitely can be utilized, especially if you're specifically utilizing it and targeting a specific area of your work in relationship to it. 100%. And it says you have so much knowledge about so many things. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Johnny Wolf, become fully aware of those altered states of consciousness. Those types of entities become aware of you. Excellent, excellent observation. Let me say that again. I want to read that part again because that really hits the nail on the head. What if I had to sum this up, working with the DMT spirit molecule, we had to put it in a short sentence. There it is. Becoming fully aware of those altered states of consciousness, those type of entities become aware of you also and very well, and can abduct you through the experience that you put yourself in. That's why I was saying earlier, for those who have gone through the abduction or have had experience, or have talked about their experiences, this is the reason why I say it's kind of difficult for them to correlate it in the mundane. And then people who don't accept it because obviously they can't see it, feel it, or experience it, then those individuals sometimes are attacked. Oh, they're crazy, they're out of their mind, they're batshit fucking loony bird, and they have all the attacks, and the judgments come upon those individuals because this is what they're experiencing. And that's why I've said for years, I've never doubted a lot of these people are not having these experiences, but this is the reason why. And sometimes the powers that be that are attacking these people, they know this is the case, but they do that on the surface because they know most people who are observing this don't know this. So it's easy for them to paint the picture, and then everybody will agree with the person who's attacking, and then they join in on the attack. Oh, yeah, that's right. That person's batshit crazy. It's not the case. Okay. Anthony J. said, no, I have not heard of Frank Castle from the Bronx. He goes live under Mother AI. No, I'm not familiar, but I'll check it out. Shem Sunetra says he offers another San Pedro. Yes, powerful ethnogen to work with as well. Also, I mentioned this before. Look into Kalindi E. He was taking extremely high doses of shrooms and went deep into the psychedelic realms. He has lectures on YouTube if anyone is interested. All right, cool. So you got sources. And Grant, there's a lot of stuff out here on this subject. Don't get me wrong. I picked this particular work tonight by Dr. Strassman because he incorporates a lot of medical data in there. And I think that is needed to some degree. I'm not saying just look at this, because this book is great because it's not just looking at it from a medical perspective, it's looking at it from a medical, a spiritual, and a psychological perspective. And I think to understand the DMT molecule and DMT and how it works within us and how it's activated, I think all three of those components are important for you to understand in your research on this. Okay? The psychology or the psychiatric part of it, the spiritual part of it, and the medical part of it. Okay. And it says especially the cactus. Okay. Vitamin D. Vitamin D is crucial, right? And there's a connection with vitamin D because vitamin D is one of the key sources that keeps the immune system functioning correctly, right? I've always suggested, and I've always had an issue with that years back going when you get a physical. A lot of people will find out when they get their blood work sometimes back that they have low levels of vitamin D, which isn't good, right? And going back several years since I started taking 1,000 IUs a day, every time I get my blood work back now, it's good. But you should take at least 1,000 IUs a day in correlation with natural sunlight, obviously, which is the best form of vitamin D, which I found ironic during COVID. They were telling everybody to stay inside and stay away from each other, when the most natural healing force that can help and assist that is vitamin D. And that's the other thing. If you look at their first wave of COVID that came hardcore in 2020, a lot of people that had chronic COVID, one of the things that was predominant in all of them was they all had low levels of vitamin D. So there's a connection with that there too. But it's a very essential, important vitamin, 100%. All right. What else we got? All right. Looking for some more questions. Yeah, Petra, Danny, again, acknowledge her. She's a good person, man. She's gonna be missed. Cuckoo Minu. Hello from Poland. All right. Poland in the house. All right. So Cuckoo's question is, don't you think that since our mystical experience depends on a chemical substance, all mysticism is only the effect of metabolism in the body and nothing else? Well, let me correct you. All of our mystical experience doesn't necessarily all rely on chemical substance, right? Even there's the natural chemical process in the brain. So there is some truth to what you're saying. I wouldn't say that all of it does. And it's not just the metabolism in the body and nothing else. It goes a little bit deeper beyond that. When we look at the mental aspect of this, right? It's the process, because once you're in that certain state, it's your everything supersedes beyond that, right? Is that at the root, or does that have a lot to do with the foundation of this? Most definitely. In that sense, you're 100% correct. And then says, what about people who have calcified plant? They can no longer have contact with spirits or deities. That's another great point. It can obstruct the strength, or it can cut off that connection completely if an individual just abandons doing anything to acknowledge that. So again, what calcifies the pineal gland? I've talked about this many times over the years. Many things do. Bad information, taking in different levels of knowledge that is 100% incorrect. Your diet has a lot to do with that. Certain foods that you take in can create high levels of calcification in the body, certain levels of stress and anxiety. Anything that makes you less dense, that creates that, which could be worldly problems such as personal problems, money problems, you name it. All of these things make you less dense. The more dense you become, the more calcified the pineal is. And it cannot receive those messages or frequencies of knowledge, consciousness, or intellect. So in that sense, yes, it destroys, disrupts, and can cut off your contact with spirits and deities, 100%. I've talked about this a lot over the years. And this why, and a great book in understanding that is a book I've mentioned many times over the last 8-9 years is Dennis William Huck, right? First name Dennis, middle name William, last name is Huck, H-A-U-C-K. He's got a book he put out. It's called Alchemy for Personal Transformation, The Emerald Tablets of Tahuti. I actually met him years ago. He is a Rosicrucian. I'm not sure if he still is now, because I've been a Rosicrucian for years. He actually wrote the book at the time. I think it was like 14 or 15. It came out somewhere around that time, and we used it for a presentation in one of our lodge presentations. He did. I can't remember if that was in California or where it was, but anyway. So I was able to come across the book at that time for that reason, and it's a very good book that talks about 7 operations of alchemy, the whole calcification process and how to reverse it, how one uses the alchemical transformation. And I show people in the mentorship program, I actually use concepts from that book to show people to use that, how to do real shadow work using the 7 operations of alchemy. It's very powerful, right? So yeah, your point is very valid there. Young Finest, what's going on, man? Keep It Real Ministries. Ah, shit. Let me stop. What's going on? Infernal blessings. Yeah, Rita says the God whose chair floats in the middle of nowhere just beyond Saturn. Also, the stars are before the planets and the earth is flat. Clearly, they had, yeah. Well, you got to remember, excuse me, they were trying to figure it out. There was a lot of theories back then. You know, you get into Magellan. And I know there's a lot of flat earthers now. No, don't get me started on that. But I mean, yeah, back, they made a lot of mistakes. Because remember, the technology has obviously, we see the great advancements. And again, they were trying to figure it out. So they were wrong in a lot of their assessments. The name Baniti simply just translates as teacher. That's it. When you look it up, it just means teacher. That's why I don't put, I know over the years people go through metamorph, they get on YouTube and they come up with all these crazy whack names. I don't put any title in front of it. I chose that name as a mainstream name to be known by because I felt that's what I do. I teach, I don't preach. I'm not telling anybody to accept everything that I'm teaching and to accept it as true and valid. You come to that conclusion on your own, because I also understand there's going to be many people that agree with a lot of things I say as well as that disagree, and that's fine. You come to the conclusion of what's reality and truth for you. But the name simply just means teacher. That's it. All right. Yeah, passion. The alter ego question. That was a really when that was brought up, that's a really good thing you can ritualize. And it actually, I never really looked at it like that until I saw he posted that question. That's something I might even look at further and explore. I wouldn't say that's like creating a servitor, because a servitor, it's similar because you're creating something for beneficial purpose to accomplish an outcome. But this is a little bit different. It's almost like creating another aspect of yourself. Whereas creating a servitor, that's not really the same thing. But the functioning of it is almost similar. It just kind of gave me thoughts when I saw it. I think you could still access the Awakening Universal Minds podcast if you go to talkshoe.com. Then we changed the name of it to Primordial Chaos. But for most part, it should be archived on there. If you go to talkshoe.com and just type it in or Google it, it should come up. Matter of fact, that's the platform I did shows back in the day with Panic, which he still has on his page. You can go onto his page. We did about 4 or 5 shows. Also with Alim Bey, there was one on there with me, Panic, and Alim Bey. That was around, I'm gonna say, 2014, 15. But it is on, if you go on Panic's page, you'll see talkshoe.com, Awakening Universal Minds, the shows we did with Panic. So it still should be there if you actually go to the TalkShoe website. And matter of fact, then Panic later started a show on TalkShoe after that. If you guys remember, he had the TalkShoe. He was doing the podcast. I think that was one of the reasons he got inspired from the ones that we were doing. It's where he got the TalkShoe, the idea to do something on TalkShoe. All right, what else we got? All right. Is there any point in practicing rituals when we are not initiated? Some people say that rituals only work when we receive initiation. Is true or not? False. 100% false, right? Self-initiation is the most powerful form of initiation. When you're in a certain system of an esoterical order that has a certain structure, and you want to be fully initiated in that specific system, then that's a different thing. Say something like masonry or an esoterical order. But rituals as a whole can be carried, especially your personal individual ritual work is your most powerful, your self-created rituals. Because when you're creating your own rituals, they're designed specifically for your own personal purpose. So no, rituals is not just exclusive to initiatic or initiatory orders or systems. That's only if you want to experience, say, a specific system of initiation from a specific spiritual system. Then in order to get the full benefits of that, you must go through their full initiatory system that was created for that system. But on the occult and the left-hand path, you're going to find that self-initiation is the most powerful system. So no, rituals are definitely not limited or exclusive to initiated systems. Okay, it's just like when somebody always contacts me. They want to get initiated in IFA. And I tell them the only way you can get fully initiated in traditional IFA, you must follow all the rules and regulations and go through the strict practices. And a lot of them are religious in nature in order to go through that full initiation. So in that regards, yes. But what we're doing is way beyond that. We're not in those systems of servitude and restriction and following no more. Okay. So again, then Kuko says, see, again, that's the thing you got to get at. When you're making a statement, so you say yes, but we also have rituals which we can't do without permission / initiation. My question is, from who? If you subscribe to a specific system where you accept the authority in that system that you're inferior to them, then yes, that applies to you. I don't need nobody's permission to do anything. Okay. I don't need nobody's validation. Neither do you or anybody else in here, unless you accept that. So let's just say, again, you want to go through Palo Mayombe. If you want to go through traditional Palo Mayombe, yes, you must go through, like I say, everything that is required. But a master who has, or he or she, who has gained a certain level of knowledge, I can still access the forces and the energy of Palo, even being traditionally initiated in it, without doing all that traditional shit. So it's 100% false. You don't need anybody's permission. Only if you believe in your mind that you do. Only if you believe that there are people that you're inferior to in those systems that you have accepted that you need permission from. Then yes, in that case, that's why you feel like that. Myself and many others will tell I don't need permission from nobody. I don't care what anybody says. They don't have to agree with it because my results from my work say otherwise. So you don't need permission. That's not true. So I don't want you to think like that. So again, yeah, of course, it's about making your ritual work. I don't look at any ritual work I do on fruitless practice. Why? Because my ritual work and everybody's ritual work on this path, first and foremost, is geared towards something specific. You don't just go into it fruitless. There has to be an intent. There has to be a goal you're trying to accomplish. See, I think what you're doing is you're comparing other cultures, and you mentioned like Eastern cultures and other cultures up there. You're trying to. It's like comparing apples to oranges, right? You can't take a culture that has a traditional system that's affiliated with it, and then compare to what we do on the occult and the left-hand path. It's a path of self-mastery. We're not governed by those rules and regulations that you're claiming, right? We're not, that's not what we don't operate under that. None of our ritual work is fruitless or pointless. All of our ritual work has purpose, clear intent, and there's a clear goal of what we're trying to accomplish, right? Nobody should go into any ritual work pointless or fruitless. That's a waste of time. But to make statements like that would be completely incorrect. I think more so you're giving your opinion on something. You're confusing an opinion with a factual statement, and you're entitled to that. That's your opinion, but I kind of think you're way off base. Okay. Haunted Lavender 222 says, "Hey Benita, so happy I found your channel. I love your wisdom and knowledge. Much love from Canada." All right, appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, again, Kuko, I'm not going to keep beating a dead drum. It's getting a little redundant. Not all Wicca has an initiation. That's not true. I think you're reading things or come. I know many people that practice Wicca, and they don't have to go through an initiation to be. You can work with so many things in Wicca and don't have to be initiated. So again, not to keep beating a redundant. We're beating a dead horse now. I think you've read things, you've gained certain, and that's your opinion. You're entitled to it. But that's one of the first things that came across years ago. Wicca, not all Wicca has an initiation. Certain systems do if you choose, yes, but that's not true either. Okay. All right, what else we got? And there's confirmation from Amanda, and I don't need to be initiated with career. I've been practicing for 20. Again, that's my whole point. I just see that now. Again, it's your perspective from obviously what you read and studied and your experience, and that's fine. But you also have to understand, just like I might say things, not everybody's going to agree with what you're saying. But I think, yeah, you're a little bit off base with that. Yeah, I'll let Amanda handle that. I see you're on top of that. I don't want to waste too much time on that. Urban alchemist. I'm just going to say urban alchemist. It's easier. I found out I have a vitamin D deficiency. I also get nervous, which spikes up my BP. They call it white coat syndrome. Yeah, I mean, look, the vitamin D deficiency. When you study the importance of that vitamin, and obviously it's a good thing. One, you were made aware of it, and obviously it sounds, and hopefully you're addressing it. Look, that's critical. One thing I explained, even with the whole COVID pandemic, I also, if you go back to when the flu, what they called the Spanish flu in the early 1900s, when that was a major pandemic, became an endemic almost. I mean, it lasted even longer than COVID did. When people were getting so sick at that time, and you could do this research, they were running out of indoor beds in the hospital. To show you how powerful this is. And they started having to put people outdoors. And they found out that people who were placed outdoors were recuperating and healing faster. And at first they couldn't figure it out. Then they realized it was because they were being exposed to the natural form of sunlight, because they started to detect that the increase of vitamin D, their levels of D were going up tremendously. And it was obviously because of the natural sunlight. So, yes, in regards to all that, I'll say it again. I've said it many times, and I'm sure I'll say it again in the future. Vitamin D is a critical vitamin for the proper functioning of your immune and autoimmune system. It's critical. I mean, in your case, people that have that, so that could be a little bit different than some others, but you'll be surprised how common the deficiency is in most people. And also, a lot of people who live in cold climates tend to have much lower levels than people who live in tropical climates. Now, I'm saying this because I'm born and raised my whole life in New York, and now I've been down in South Florida the last several years, which obviously down here is more of a tropical sun environment. So I also realized being in those cold climates really for certain people is not good for their habitat, especially people who were raised or have in their genetics and DNA being raised in a Caribbean or tropical environment. So this is why you'll notice a lot of people who move from the Caribbean, whether that's Jamaica, Trinidad, Virgin Islands, Barbados, wherever, you'll notice a lot of them, when they leave the islands, they migrate outside of coming to places like here, South Florida. Like, you have a lot of people from the Caribbean all throughout Fort Lauderdale, Miami, West Palm Beach, and all the parts of Florida. But they go to cold climates, right? And let me tell you what tends to happen. They'll go to places like New York, big cities in the Northeast. They'll go to places like Canada, England, right? These are places a lot of people from the Caribbean go, especially Jamaicans, for an example. And they tend to get there and develop a lot of ailments, illnesses, and sicknesses that they never had when they lived in the Caribbean. Because, like, for an example, a lot of people in the Caribbean will use a lot of natural sugar cane, brown sugar. They come here to the States, they start eating processed and bleached sugar, starts creating illnesses, ailments in the body, all diabetes, all types of shit, high blood pressure, and low levels of vitamin D causing all types of immune problems, right? Because remember, your body also has to adapt to its natural environment. So I say all that to say, so sometimes climate can have an effect on certain things in relationship to that. I was saying all that to say that. But yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, Shem, so thanks for confirming the book. That's it right there. D.M.T, the spirit molecule, a doctor's revolutionary research into the biology of near-death and mystical experiences. Good book. Urban Alchemist says vitamin D deficiency is associated with hypertension. I recently found out, so I got vitamin D3 liquid supplement. Yeah, liquid's always better in any form because obviously it absorbs quicker into the body. I got to be careful what I say on there because they let me not talk too much about it. One of my videos they pulled down that I was talking about vitamins and herbs, so I don't want them to block this video. So unfortunately, it's fucked up. I know, but YouTube picks up on algorithms, and that's why I have to keep saying I'm not a doctor. Um, but yes, liquid it absorbs quicker, but we all should be getting the right correct amount of it. Uh, yeah, and get that natural sun too, 100%. Yeah, well, I mean you're on top of it. You're on top of it. All right. Amanda Pellier, I think. Oh, we're still on that. I mean, if you get, there's a book by Raymond Buckland. He goes through all that, the different levels and degrees of Wicca and witchcraft. Raymond Buckland's it's a blue book. It's an occult class. So he goes into all that. All right, man. This says question for you: what was your reason for starting your YouTube channel and doing lives? Just curious. I think it's wonderful you're discussing demonology, sharing it now. Uh, just because I enjoy doing it. That's it. And I can't really sit down if I had to sit there and go, what was one specific reason? I just felt the urge and the desire to share this information because I felt like, yeah, now it's grown over the years. There's more people with platforms. I just don't think there was a lot of voice for this, right? I just kind of wanted to do it to have a platform where this type of information can be discussed because uh, even today, it's not really a mainstream platform. So really just a desire to share the information. And again, my goal is not trying to convert anybody over to anything. If you remember when I first came on years ago, I always used to put that in the disclaimer. I'm not here trying to recruit anybody for anything. I'm not recruiting you to join any type of organization, or I'm not trying to get you into some type of specific spiritual system that I think is right and everything else is wrong. No, my goal was just a platform free of judgments, open discussion. We can agree to disagree, just a dialogue. And it was always with the intent to just put information out there and you guys take it and do with it you see fit. I'm not really concerned, whether, I mean, it's great if you love it and you appreciate it, that's great. But I'm not concerned if you love, like, or hate it. Even if you disagree with it and it gets you riled up and angry and upset, then I did my job to get you to think further outside the box. So you take that information, you explore it. I couldn't really care if you agree with it, disagree with it, love, like, or hate it. That's not what my intent was. My intent was just to put the information out there to keep that open line of discussion open and to have a platform where we don't judge unless you get stupid or ignorant. Then so once in a while you got to block somebody because they're ignorant. But that was it. That was just the purpose, just to have a venue or a platform where we can talk about the occult or the left hand path. Because again, it's grown. I mean, it's becoming more open as the years go on. But just when I first came on, I mean, not that I've been on long, but I think I first came on around 2013 or 14. It just wasn't a lot. There was some. I mean, you always had Brother Panic. He was talking about a lot of occult left hand path stuff. And I just didn't want everybody to think the occult or the left hand path also was just like Satanism or the Church of Satan, because that's unfortunately going years back. That's when anytime you say you on the occult or the left hand path, don't ask me why, but everybody would automatically assume that's what you were referring to. So I think that was one of the other reasons I wanted people to see that the occult and the left hand path deals with a lot of various different levels of information, topics, and knowledge. Right. So that's basically it. Okay. But that's a good question, Amanda. That's a good question. Uh, So again, I don't want to be the dead horse, but I think Kukramanu, you're interpreting things completely wrong. It doesn't mean your statement there is, I don't know where you're getting that. I don't know how you're perceiving that, but that's your personal perception. It doesn't mean that the spirits and gods need our pineal gland to have access to us. That's not there was nowhere anywhere that was stated or anywhere where I said that. What it's saying is if the pineal gland is obstructed, it can create difficulties to connect. But there are instances where people have gone into certain rituals and experience because sometimes some people are naturally genetically connected stronger than others. And that gets into a whole nother topic. I think what you're doing is you're taking things and putting your twist on them and you're coming to your own conclusions, right? You can't deny, though, that the pineal gland has a strong connection to it. That's the point. Nobody said that. And it's just like I've been saying for years. Some people will say your chakras are completely closed or blocked. There's no such thing. They can be obstructed or blocked, but the connection is always there. What it's saying is the more stronger it's functioning, the more powerful the connection is. So again, I think what you're doing is you're giving your own opinion and interpretation on that. Okay. All right. Well, if becoming an atheist, if that's what you want to do, then knock yourself out. Even that, there's no such thing as an atheist. It has root in the word theory. Even an atheist has a theory, right? So that probably wouldn't work. Pandemonium, yeah, Pandemonium Radio. That was the other show. Rita says, just to add another alter ego concept, I think that the ego is multidimensional. And this is a good point. I think I'm going to explore this further and very multifaceted. Thus, one can create, develop other aspects of it and integrate them in a unified way. I think those are all good concepts. And when it was brought up earlier, I would explore that. I think that's something you can explore in your ritual work, right? Uh, it's all like you say, artists. Like there's a lot of rappers that have done that, and Method Man, Johnny Blaze. I mean, you can look at a lot of the artists that have done that over the years. Um, and really, when you look at it, really the alter ego, when you look at it from an artist perspective, because really that's how they saw themselves as, right? That's what they wanted to become. So really, they created the alter ego, but really, in essence, that's who they really were. Anyway, the alter ego was the vessel or the venue that they utilized to manifest that. So I think that's magical in itself. I think that's pretty cool. I'm all for that. And again, you guys bringing this up tonight, I never really looked at it from that perspective until I see you guys putting that in there tonight. So I think that would be something cool, and it's actually giving me ideas to inspire some type of working to do with some of the members on the Patreon page. It's giving me ideas. My mind is wandering, but good, it's good stuff. Oh, the symbol, that's just the symbol in the black and the snake. So you have the symbol behind me, that's the Leviathan cross. We all know what the Leviathan cross represents. And then the serpents and the snake is just a representation of the draconian or the dragon energy, the raising of the Kundalini. And we know that dragon or that primordial chaos in those primordial chaotic waters is connected to the great serpent or sea dragon. It's all symbolic and metaphorical. But it's all connected again to a lot of things that we're talking about. That's it. Urban Alchemist says, because I work from home a lot and I really am a hermit. Luckily, I don't get sick like that. Look, when it comes to health things, I mean, there's one thing I learned with this. Sometimes things like I struggle with my AC1. I exercise, right? I try. Sometimes the eating has got to be a bit better. But one thing I've shared with you, my doctors have said with me, there's many people you can look at. They're fit, they're in shape, they eat right, they exercise, for the most part, they do things correct to the best of their ability. And sometimes you just inherit genetics. And you can look at a person who looks so healthy and they have a lot of issues because it goes beyond that. genetics plays a large role in it, right? You sometimes inherit genetics, obviously, from your parents, your grandparents on back, and certain issues are passed through the genes. So I say all that to say, the best you can do is, gain the knowledge on what you need to do to address it and make it better, and just do your best, right? And that's all you can do, right? And I'm sure there's a lot of us who have certain areas in our lives and you struggle with. And as you get older, like I get a little, I keep it there, but it's a struggle sometimes to keep it there. It's not that I'm diabetic or anything like that, but it gets to those levels where you get almost borderline, right? And then you get frustrated because you're doing a lot of the things you're doing. And then you find out sometimes when you have a history of certain things in your family, as you get older, it seems like a lot of those things start to manifest. And I will say it's very important to combat a lot of these things. I can't stress how important exercising is. I don't care what anybody says. You feel different, not just physically, mentally. You're more vibrant. You're awake. Emotionally, it helps lower stress levels, anxiety levels, and then obviously it has its physical health benefits. And I've always encouraged, I've always been pumping out for all you guys to establish a regular exercise routine. I don't care what it is. You don't need to be a gym rat. You don't need to be psychotic. I know a lot of us, it's hard in this day and time. A lot of us have super busy schedules. Some people work multiple jobs or run a business, and it takes a lot of time out of your life. And, a lot of us are raising families. We got kids, some of us, and I get it. But guess what? Like anything else on this path, it's not an excuse. We still need to find time for that. And I can't stress how much I know exercising makes me feel great. I love going to the gym, putting on my earbuds, listening to music. It's just like, it's almost ritualistic to me. And I can attest to the feeling better, and it also improves your sleep. It just on all levels, just established when it comes in regards to that. Just try to get you. I don't care if it's a brisk walk. I don't care if it's weightlifting. Maybe you got some other interest, but you should be establishing minimum 3 days a week or more, because you'll be surprised the benefits of that. It's not a myth. I know it's tough. Sometimes people get lazy. I don't want to do it. Or some people start and then they just don't stay with it. Look, it's a game changer. I don't care what anybody says. It's a game changer. Oh, no problem. Many thanks for answering the questions, Brother Mios, for the wisdom, infernal love, and light. Thank you. I appreciate that. Urban Alchemist, you sound like you got the same problems as me. We're gonna have to talk, man. My blood pressure always act up only when at the doctor's home. So I decided to keep it. Look, get one of these joints. I got this one here. I know these are big now, smartwatch. This one here even calculates your glucose, blood pressure, oxygen. Mine is good. This watch is phenomenal. I got it because I always like to check the blood glucose, make sure I keep it in order. I like this one because I can see after I eat certain things, if it spikes, it'll give me an awareness, and I'll take note of, oh, don't eat that. And like I say, I'm good. I keep things in order. It was the same thing, with the blood pressure, and that gets a little more difficult to maintain as you become older. But I got it all where I need it to be. It's crazy this comes up today. I had my annual physical today. I had my blood work, did my urine, all that today. See how that all comes back. But these things, find a good one of these. Again, most of them, like this one, and most of them do most of these things. Not all of them do the blood glucose, but that's why I got this one. This one does blood glucose, blood oxygen, gives you blood pressure, your body temperature, your heart rate, beats per minute. It gives all that. And it's just a nice, helpful tool to have, especially when I'm also in the gym. I like to see the increase, and obviously it calculates your steps, but I like to see the increase, and I try to do the 5,000 steps a day. You should be getting 5,000 to 8,000. I try to do a minimum 5,000 a day, so it's a good calculator for that. And I went and got one of these small walking pads that I have in my bedroom when I can't well, I want to get an extra session, or maybe I can't get to the gym, I make sure I minimum get a 30-minute walk in the in-between days that I don't go to the gym. And now you don't need this big ass fucking treadmill in your house anymore. They have these things called walking pads now. You guys have probably seen them. It's just the flat part of the treadmill, and it's great because you can either stand it up or roll it under the bed so it doesn't take up too much space. That's good for somebody per se who maybe doesn't have the time, because look, there's always a solution, right? For the person that says, well, I just don't have the time, I can't get a gym membership, I don't have time to make separate time as we go, well, then get one of them walking pads, keep it in your bedroom, and get your ass up maybe a half an hour early and walk for 30 minutes, right? That's a solution right there for the super busy person that says they have no time at all, okay? This is what I always mean when I say that some people can come with all the reasons why they can't do something, but they never come with one reason why they can do something. I got the walking pad to just do sessions in between, like on a Monday. Like I can't get to that. I don't go to the gym on a Monday. Monday's a busy day for me, work-wise. So I'll come home before I shower. I'll go do a 30-minute walk on the walking pad, right? Just come up with creative ways because look, your health is important, right? I'm gonna be 53 years old in June. I don't want to. I seen some people I grew up with in their 50s. They don't look good. Okay. I'm not trying to fight the aging process. I'm trying to do, as they say, age gracefully. But I know some people I grew up with in high school, they look like they 75 because they ain't doing nothing to take care of themselves, right? So you got to take care of yourself to the best of your ability. Okay. All right. What else we got? Oh no. That's the purpose of this platform, Kukum. I'm just gonna refer to you as Kuku instead of saying on there. No. No. I don't want you to think anybody's attacking you. I don't think you do. And I'm glad you're sharing your insight and your perspectives, and that's what this is for. That's what the platform's for. And that's fine. And again, as long we're all adults, as long as we can agree to disagree, you don't have to. It's just the way it is. But appreciate you sharing the insights. What else we got? Take a couple more. Yes, tropical blood. I thrive better in warmer climates. I have Caribbean and Central American descent. I can't stand cold places. Yeah, I mean that has something to do. I'm not saying that that's the sole reason, but that has a lot to do with it. 100%, 100%. That can have something to do with it. I'm gonna take a few more. It's getting late. I'm gonna have to wrap this up. I got a few things I need to do. Now, these are all good questions. Unfortunately, I can't get to everybody tonight. You read a good comment there. Just caught me as I'm scrolling down. The gods are in the divine imagine the pineal gland is a central locus of connection to that. These are all good comments. Sulfur. All right. Yeah, the compact treadmills. They're called walking pads. And the one I got, leave you with this, Urban Alchemist. It's you can get them anywhere from a good one. I caught one when there was a sale. Well, so-called say a sale. Everybody claims they got a fucking sale, right? They go anywhere from 70 to about $100. And I think I got mine. The one I got was like 119, but it was on sale for I think I got it for like $84. And it's really good, man. And it has an app. Just so you know, you're connected to an app. And the app has a health tracker. And on the app, it's got different routines you can access. Pretty cool. But email me. I can send you the link to the one I got if you're interested. Just shoot me an email. All right. Hey, listen, I appreciate you guys. Getting late. I got to cut this short. I appreciate everybody that tuned in. I do want to remind. Oh, last thing before I leave, I forgot. The Patreon classes are up. We actually get right at it starting this Saturday, which is tomorrow. I'll see some of you guys in class. Let me just run through it real quick, and then I'll get out of here. Starting tomorrow, we have shadow work class, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. And then on Friday, May 10th, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have the African Witchcraft and Sorcery class number 9. I'm going to try to, Brother Tata should join me in that class. You don't want to miss that. Every time he comes through, he gives great insight. And then on Saturday, May 18th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the Clepothic Sorcery and Magic class. And then we have our ritual on Thursday, May 30th, Vortex to the Throne of Lucifer ritual. That'll be 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, you must be a Patreon member to participate in the classes and the rituals. Again, go to patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti, tier 3. That's the tier you want to join. That will give you access to the classes. Again, if you need to reach out to me for a reading, a consultation, or any of the aforementioned, all that's in the description box of the video, the link to the social media pages, the podcast, all that information is there. All right. I appreciate you guys. Fernal blessings. We'll talk soon. I'm out of here.